What's up, Sifters, and welcome to GameFace, episode 356 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the next couple hours of awesome video game discussion. And alongside me to do that is awesome person number 2, Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Oh, not much.
A little bit of a false start there for...
A little bit. Now you can hear my brilliant observations about the door in the open.
Yeah, there was just this little button on our mixer that had been pressed because I went and shot Pactor Factor with the soundboard over the last week, and during the travels, something hit a button that was lowering Matt's mic. But I think we got it all figured out now. Matt, how's your week been?
All right. Mostly been playing various things, trying to ignore the fact that I'm not playing Starfield.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, well, normally I don't care that much because it's like, oh, it comes, the codes go out like, 3 days or something before, but this has been over 2 weeks.
I'm very thankful for that I've had...
I mean, it's the right thing to do for the game, but it's just like the other right thing to do would have been to give you 2 codes.
Yeah.
But, meanwhile, I will say that, despite the leak, I haven't seen any leaked illicit footage pop up in my feed because I certainly haven't gone looking for it. I haven't seen it pop up until yesterday when the video about somebody only able to run 10 minutes away from the ship thing came up. But people have been pretty restrained considering, other than there
really haven't been any major leaks.
Then some influencer kids kind of doing this game title redacted is so good, you guys, and I'm just like, I wasn't even alive when Morrowind came out. I'll make you not alive now, you piece of shit. But it's been pretty restrained overall. Even with that 40-minute leak, I haven't seen that spontaneously show up anywhere.
Yeah.
Not that I went looking for it.
Yeah, I haven't seen any leaks, honestly. Other than I saw the reports about the one you just talked about.
Yeah, I will say that this morning, Starfield derangement syndrome seems to have hit Twitter pretty hard.
It hit David Jaffe today.
Yeah, I saw that after you mentioned it when you got here. I didn't see that before, but I saw a bunch of people, if you look in their histories, their timelines, they're all Sony fanboys. The console wars around this thing that have started
crazy
have been bizarre. Because I mean, how many years has it been since Sony fans had anything to be jealous of on the Xbox
It's been a while.
side? This is like a new experience. Some of them are young enough that they've never lived through this before,
That's true.
right?
They're going through some things.
And but some of it's just it's bizarre. They've been pushing the whole you can only run 10 minutes in one direction thing. But the weird one is people who are saying that the exploration they claimed in the game was a lie because you can't land on gas giants. And it's I don't know how hard you got to fail a science class to be disappointed you can't land on Jupiter. Yeah. Because that's not going to end well for you. I'm just so you know.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite weird thing about how it's a terrible game because you can't land on gas giants.
Go back to school.
Yeah. There's definitely, this is heating up in a way that I haven't seen the console wars do in a while, and it's weird now. It's like the political discourse styles have leaked into this now.
Gaming,
and I saw somebody claiming that all Xbox fans want to eradicate PlayStation fans and remove PlayStation from the industry. And I'm like, what's wrong with you?
I think that was maybe spurred on by the comment that Microsoft made about how they could spend PlayStation out of the business if they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean...
That would be my guess. If you're a Sony pony...
That's also how PlayStation got into the business, so...
Right. If you're a Sony pony, though, and you hear that, that is DEFCON 5. That is your worst fears.
Very silly.
It's really funny.
But it's entertaining, I guess, but it's just bizarre. And it's like I said, it's... and I know, Phil is saying this is the starting gun, and a big because he's trying to really play it up is we're finally going to start putting games out. Yeah, he even admitted he's last year was not acceptable. It was, and I'm like, no, it wasn't.
Or really the year before that, and the year before that.
Well, the last year was the disappointing one because they
literally had nothing.
They literally had Starfield's release date for last year engraved in metal in the trailer.
In the trailer, yeah.
So I understand that, but it's weird because it's this phase is going to be different, but also in the sense of the weirdos who fight over this shit are going to get elevated in a way that you haven't seen them be since the 360.
Yeah. What happened with Jaffe today was that he tweeted a review for Starfield, and I came across it, and I was like, dude, why would you break embargo? And I replied to him, how would you feel if, back in the God of War 2 days, if I broke embargo for my review of God of War 2? And he just wrote back, I'd be devastated, and I would blah, blah, blah. But as it turns out, it was a lie. He didn't have Starfield at all. I don't have all day to sit on frickin' Twitter and go research every frickin' tweet. And he was supposed to be a joke. There was no sarcasm tag. There was no hint at all in his tweet that it was fake or it was a joke or he was being sarcastic. And the tweet had been viewed like 300,000 times. How many of those people, Matt, do you think were like, I'm going to go to David Jaffe's Twitter feed and look through the last 500 tweets of his and like figure out if he's telling the truth? No, people are going to be like, oh, he didn't like Starfield. That sucks. Like,
well, I'm looking at it right now and I don't understand what the funny part is.
There's nothing funny about it.
I mean, later he says, he quote tweeted it and said, I meant Seinfeld.
Right.
Which, if you read it,
that doesn't work.
It kind of does, in the sense he's like, ending was what the fuck? I don't really understand the overall theme, but I kind of get it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the ending of Seinfeld, is sort of like...
Yeah, I don't actually wouldn't know. I wasn't a big Seinfeld fan, but...
I wasn't, but my dad was, so I've seen all of Seinfeld up to the finale, and like, yeah, the finale is sort of like... That's actually a valid review of the Seinfeld finale, but I don't know how you're supposed to put that together from the tweet.
It was a desperate play.
It's like anti-humor or something.
It was a desperate play for attention, let's just be honest.
I mean, it's looking for... anything posting about Starfield today is looking for engagement.
Yeah.
And that's that.
So anyway...
Because there are some small people I've never heard of breaking embargo today.
That's crazy.
Which is...
And they're going to stay
never hear of them
small
again.
people, if they do that. So anyway, he and I went back and forth a couple times. But anyway, he posted a fake review of Starfield. Do not believe his review. He ended up not getting code. Because the other thing, too, is like somebody said to me, like, it's David Jaffe. He's a developer. No, he's not a developer anymore. He covers the games industry. He's a podcasts just like us. Like, there is reason to believe he would have Starfield. And in fact, knowing him, knowing the industry, if he really pushed it, he could probably get review code for most games if he really wanted it.
Yeah,
so
probably.
It's totally plausible. Luna's crying.
Luna's screaming out in the hallway, and I don't know what. Luna!
Yeah. So anyway... that was an interesting start to my day. In the midst of trying to get ready for this show, I ended up getting in a back and forth with Jaffe on Twitter about his fake review of Starfield. So anyway, it's been a crazy week, Matt.
Yep.
I've been working my butt off for you people, man. Like, I'm just being honest with you. Like, I've been trying to create 3 weeks worth of content in 1 week because I have to make the content for the week that you're watching now, and I have to make all the content for the rest of this week and all of next week. It has been a nightmare. But I'm almost there. The only thing I have left is one piece of content for Starfield. It's going to be breaking an embargo. But otherwise, I've kind of got there. I just need to pack all my stuff up now and get ready to go for Labor Day weekend. Again, a reminder that there is no GameFace next Tuesday at all. There's no GameFace next week at all. For Labor Day weekend, I will be back on the East Coast, spending some time with the family. And then when I come back the following Monday, we may do the show on Tuesday, because it's probably just going to be like almost all Starfield, let's be honest, because you won't have had a chance to talk about it yet. It'll be your first time talking about it. And so we may be able to do the show on Tuesday, because I'll have played tons of Starfield. I can just roll right in. And
when are you talking about here?
So the Monday after Labor Day. The Tuesday after.
So not
the
next
week
Tuesday,
later.
but the week after.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the game for like almost 2 weeks at that point. So.
Yeah. So we could probably just come right in and do a show on Starfield, no problem. So anyway...
the only thing holding it back is the B-roll, and you've already got that.
I've already got that, yep. So anyway, as always, keep an eye on our Twitter feed, at Sifted Games on Twitter. That will be the key, if you're not on Sifted all the time, to know whether we're going to do GameFace the week after Labor Day week. Remember, the week after. There is no show next week. Just to reiterate. So anyway, that's our housekeeping, and I'm excited to head home and spend some time with my mom and my family. It's been a while since I've been able to do that, so I'm excited about it, but you guys aren't even going to notice. We're going to have more content than normal rolling through the channels while I'm gone. So I hope you guys appreciate it and you enjoy it. Let's see. Let's get to some housekeeping, Kyle. One of the not quite big enough stories for a full topic from this week, but worth discussing, is that Phil Spencer shared this week that he does not believe that consoles will ever have price drops ever again. People asked him at some interviews at Gamescom, they're like, hey, when can we expect a price drop for Xbox Series X? And he's basically like, never. He said that the specialized parts that they have to get from vendors, there she is.
What's wrong?
Yeah. The specialized parts that they have to get from vendors, they have to place special orders for those, and they have to pay extra money to keep those parts being manufactured because otherwise they would not be manufactured. So therefore, he says that their cost to make consoles now stays the same, that it never goes down. Do you believe that, Matt?
Kind Kind of, yeah. Like a lot of those parts are just like even like the SSD stuff. Like those prices have never come down either. Like there's certain stuff just costs what it costs, and it doesn't seem to. Doesn't seem to differ because like the old parts, like they would get cheaper because the newer parts that replaced them or were better than them would be the cutting edge stuff, and the methods you used to make the old parts became sort of outmoded and cheaper, and that doesn't seem to happen anymore. You're just making the same parts but bigger, faster with bigger heat sinks or better cooling, and so it doesn't get any cheaper to make the other stuff. It just is more expensive to make the newer stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that seems to be pretty accurate in terms of how manufacturing is working right now. Whether that's a trend that's artificially manufactured or whether it's something that happened in the wake of COVID and the manufacturing disruptions, I don't know. But that does, in fact, seem to be how things are rolling right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of his exact quotes was, you can't ever expect a $500 console to eventually come down to $200. He basically just said that those days are over.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's been sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy PS5 or Xbox Series X, waiting for those price drops, I don't think they're coming, people. And I know that's completely out of the ordinary for the way this industry has worked. Although if you think about it, last generation was kind of the same.
Like it was never a huge deep cut for the PlayStation 4.
And that was the first generation where that ever happened. Or that didn't happen, I guess is maybe a better way to phrase it. So that's a big change. That's a huge shift for the industry, Matt, that console prices are not going to come down. Now, what Pachter always brings up is, yeah, that's true, but what they end up doing is they end up packing free games in with the consoles because it doesn't cost them anything.
Right.
So they can essentially, perception-wise, lower the cost of their console by giving free games without lowering the cost of the console, without costing themselves any real money. So that seems to be kind of the new way to do things for both PlayStation and Xbox. I mean, let's be honest, Nintendo hasn't lowered the price of Switch either.
No.
It just seems to be kind of the way it is.
That seems like they could probably get away with that. Although part of the reason it was even as cheap as it was in the first place was they were using old tech. So, and maybe that old tech just had already hit as low as it was going to go in the first place.
I mean, let's be honest. Nintendo probably is having to pay to keep production of those chips
going, yeah.
To Phil Spencer's point.
They're definitely the only ones still making them.
I mean, there's no factory that's still going to make that chip.
Yeah,
just on its own.
If the Switch goes away, that's the end of
It's done. They'll never make another one. So I guess his point does make sense. It's just shocking to hear. And it is kind of funny that it took this, finally, for them to say, like, that's just not happening anymore. So again, if you're someone who's been sitting and waiting, like, for these consoles, buy it. Because unless you want to wait maybe to get a free game or two, that would really be the only incentive that you would have to wait at this point.
Or like, every once in a while I get like a Black Friday deal that knocks $50 off it or something.
Yeah,
but
like there's a deal in Europe right now, in Spain, in Italy, and a couple other territories. There's like 50 off, like a PS5 right now in a couple areas. But for the most part, those costs are still full price and they're going to stay that way. Let's see what you guys are saying about this, because this is a big deal, man. This is one of those, maybe this should have been a full topic, because this is a big deal. To know that we're never having price drops again is crazy. Mike's Q says, it has been years since I've seen a decent video game pack in for GPUs. They still do those, though.
Once in a while.
Control was one.
Control was in there. There was another one. The original RTX cards had a couple.
Yeah.
I think Battlefield was in one of them at some point. I mean, I don't know. Mine didn't come with anything.
Sneaky says, anytime a game is packed in, it's more, extra $50. No, that's not true. I mean, it depends on your territory, and I do know that you're in Europe. I mean, that might be the case in Europe.
It can be. Like the Diablo bundle was $70 more than like. But if you're talking about like a first party thing, that I don't think the Horizon bundle was any more. Depending on the store, maybe it was in some store. Maybe like GameStop charged you more. But
one Super Master Gamer, thank you for Twitch Prime. The Big Smoke 82, thank you for Twitch Prime. Anyone who's getting in here early. They said someone says that the Starfield soundtrack leaked. Okay, that's not such a big deal though. Let's see. Yeah, looks like that's all you guys got for today. Oh, Jonas, first time chat, man. Welcome to GameFace Live. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. David Nordic, thank you for Twitch Prime. Mike's Q, thank you for Twitch Prime. I'll try to get all these in before we get going here. Are there any more? Wow, you guys are going off in the comments. This has got you fired up. I can understand it. Like, this has been a staple in the industry for decades, Matt, that eventually you could buy the console cheaper. If you waited it out, eventually you could buy the console for dirt cheap and then spend all the money you saved on starting your library for that console. And those days are just gone. It's kind of sad, honestly. But anyway, so it doesn't affect us because we always buy right at launch anyway, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but for a lot of our audience, I know there's still a lot of people on Sifted that have not upgraded yet to the new consoles. So it is what it is, but that's a big story for sure.
Also, you're hitting 3 years now.
Yeah.
Like,
this is around the time, like, it should be around, like, 250 or 300 back in the old days. Like,
yeah, but
PS2...
It's not the old days and hasn't been for a long time.
PS2, they dropped it, like, $100 in, like, a year. Mm-hmm. Like, it used to be way different. But anyway, those days are now over.
Well, you could always do the layaway program.
That's true. Yeah,
for Xbox.
Xbox has that official layaway program, which we actually just showed a trailer for there. It's called Xbox All Access or whatever, where you can pay, like, is it $30 a month or something like that?
That sounds right. I don't remember.
And then eventually you own the Series X. So that might be something worth looking into if you're someone who is waiting for a price drop and now realize that that is not happening.
You need that Starfield machine now.
Yeah, yeah. Another smaller story, kind of from Xbox land from this week, is that Baldur's Gate 3, which we thought was going to be delayed on Xbox until next year because of the Series S. Mm-hmm. Now, Larian is saying, nope, we're going to have that done before the end of the year, before the end of 2023, the Xbox
because
version.
They met with Microsoft about it.
Right.
Basically, Microsoft has given them permission to put it out without having split screen on the S.
Right. Because
basically, who fucking cares?
Yeah. Because basically what Microsoft had done was it had handed an exclusive, a huge console exclusive to PlayStation 5 because it was insistent that the game could run on Series S.
Which is incredibly dumb.
It was so short-sighted.
Incredibly dumb. It's still, as good as coming before the end of the year. They still blew it.
Oh, yeah. Because still, they're getting a timed exclusive over that.
Yeah.
They should have relented on that.
A very important one.
Yeah. They should have relented on that like a year ago and been like, you know what? Just get that split screen done whenever you can. And now that's what's happening.
It really feels like they didn't understand what Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be until it happened.
And I also don't think that they understood at the beginning what the Series S was going to do to their platform.
No.
That it was going to handcuff them and make it difficult for developers to release games for Xbox Series X because you have to make sure the game also works on Series S. And now we're getting to these Unreal Engine 5 games that are resource hogs. It's going to be hard to get those games to look and play well on Xbox Series S. It just is.
Which is the most obvious thing in the world, and it blows my mind that people who bought a Series S thought anything else was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not... that's... I mean... I don't know. I don't understand the reason this thing exists.
Yeah. It's a Game Pass machine.
It's a Game Pass machine, sure, but it can't... It's not... 3 years in, expecting it to play stuff properly? Yeah. No.
It was very short-sighted.
Never.
The whole plan was very short-sighted.
And to hold back and to miss out on this opportunity with parity with PlayStation 5 on Baldur's Gate just because you were holding it back because of split screen play on this unbelievable.
Huge mistake.
Unbelievably ridiculous.
Yeah. Those are typically the kind of gaffes that get people fired. Just saying. It seems like there's a lot of people seem to be a lot more patient for mistakes anymore. But yeah, that was a huge gap.
$500 may be way too much for a game console for most people, but that is how much the new generation systems cost, and they should not be held back by old tech at all.
Yeah.
The Series S can exist and be like the gimped version of the current stuff for the kind of the lesser thing, but holding back the main console for the X and kind of having games release on the Xbox platform, holding that back because of things the S can't do is idiotic. Yeah. Completely ridiculous.
It's short-sighted. It's very short-sighted. Yep.
And I think
Microsoft learned a really hard lesson.
It's like if you want that thing to be there for a Game Pass box or for indie stuff or for just an easy in for a lower price point, absolutely. But you can't as the consumer, you can't expect, and as Microsoft, you cannot make them expect that you're going to be playing the cutting edge stuff on that thing in the same way you would on an X. It's just not possible.
They're going to have to drop the requirement, I think, that every game has to release on both. It will become confusing for the consumer. But
I think you can still have them release on both because the settings are going to be modular enough and slidable enough that you can make it happen. But
maybe 1080p for some games.
Performance expectations cannot be on the same level, and features cannot be on this. Split screen can't happen because that thing's just not powerful enough to run that game thing basically twice in the same
you're rendering
screen.
twice, yeah.
So, like, yeah, like, you're going to have to do that to basically lubricate the ability to get these games out on the ecosystem, because the ecosystem is what they want you in anyway.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy in hindsight that you could play 4 players on the N64? That is pretty insane.
Well,
now, granted, they would chop down the visuals a little bit, but still.
A lot. Also, remember, those games ran terribly.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
like,
GoldenEye played pretty well on
GoldenEye ran at like 20 frames a second.
Yeah.
Like, it was
good enough.
It was good enough then, but nobody would accept it now.
All right, yeah.
You can. I'll go back and play GoldenEye N64 right now if you want.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't bother me. Never bothered me. I finished Jet Force Gemini 100%, and that thing ran at like 8 frames a second sometimes. Like, it just wasn't an issue.
Yeah. Now the messaging does get a little complicated if you have these two consoles and one only plays in 1080p. But look, I would argue the person ordering the Series S instead of the Series X probably can't tell the difference between 1080p and 1440p. Like. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, like, the casuals generally are the people buying the Series S because they don't want to put a big investment into a console. They're like,
probably got motion smoothing on anyway. They won't notice.
Right. So, I don't know. I think Microsoft needs to drop the mandate, let the publishers and the game developers decide.
Yeah, I think the S thing needs to basically be like, do your best.
Yeah.
Don't neglect it. Don't refuse to put your game on it, but, like, just do your best.
Yeah.
If you got to cut some features because it's just not able to do what you want it to do, that shouldn't prevent you from releasing the game on Xbox. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So anyway, Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to Xbox before the end of the year, but PS5 is still getting a nice little lengthy console timed exclusive there.
And it's weird how Starfield kind of saved their ass on that a little bit, because that's why Baldur's Gate moved back a month.
Yeah.
And that gave them the time to realize, we definitely don't want to have to wait to get this on our system next year.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just such a weird way that all played out.
It is strange.
Imagine if Starfield hadn't come out then, or if nobody had been afraid of Starfield, and it came out on the same day for both PS5 and PC, and PS5 had been part of that whole furor and whole, the highest rated reviewed game of all time.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if that had just been there and not on Xbox.
Yeah.
Like, what an absolute disaster for Microsoft that would. I mean, it's still bad, but, like, yeah.
Well, up next we have another story about Microsoft, and this one's not particularly flattering either.
Although we called this one.
We did call this. Matt and I called this like a year ago or more. But Microsoft is going to kill the $1 Game Pass special deal in light of the launch of Starfield.
Just in time for Starfield. I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Nothing to see.
I mean, I'll be honest, it's smart.
A business sense for sure. It's sleazy, but it's smart.
It's sleazy, but smart. I mean, and again, Matt and I called this. We were like, man, how can you afford to keep giving away Game Pass for $1 for 3 months or whatever?
I'm sure last year sometime I said, if there's a moment where that will go away, it's probably right before Starfield.
Yeah, and it is. So the free lunch for Game Pass is going away now that Microsoft finally has an exclusive that's, has an exclusive that's worthy of driving people to Game Pass.
Well, they've got an exclusive that people who don't normally talk about this stuff are talking about. Which
that's a good way to put it.
About as close as all you can say right now. We'll see.
I have to be
when
very
when the rubber meets the road in a couple days, we'll see what everyone thinks.
Exactly.
But
just the hype alone is enough right now.
Yeah, the fact that people I know who don't normally talk about game news have asked me about Starfield proves to me that, which normally is reserved for things like Last of Us and God of War, it proves to me that this has penetrated outside of the core gaming world in a way that, honestly, Microsoft exclusives haven't for a very long time.
Yeah, not even Forza Horizon did.
Oh, no, I gotta explain what Forza Horizon is to people all the time.
Because the name doesn't make sense.
And to be fair, when they finally try it, they love it, and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe there's been 5 of these, and I didn't play them before." I'm like, "Yeah, that is kind of an Xbox tradition."
And they're all this good,
right? Yeah. It's like there's 4 more. Yeah. Well, not the first one because that's all delisted from licensing, but maybe the second one too. I can't remember.
I don't know.
Some of those packs I think went away. I think the game's still available.
A lot of the licensing stuff.
The first one's
complicated.
Gone.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, if you've been hoping to get Game Pass for $1 to play Starfield, that's not going to happen. I would argue it's still worth spending the full $15 for the month for Starfield anyway. So anyway, just Microsoft tightening the belt a little bit. I think it was inevitable, and if there was a moment where it was going to do it, this is it. Mm-hmm. Next up, Epic Game Store. Matt, I think I've come to the conclusion at this point that Epic just has more money than God. And it can just do whatever it wants, and it can just flush millions and billions of dollars down the toilet, and it doesn't matter, because what it's doing now is it initiated a program called First Run, where the game developers collect 100% of the revenue for the first 6 months the game is on Epic Game Store. So that 30% or whatever cut Epic was taking from other developers and publishers, it's gone for the first 6 months, which is when you sell all the games. Yeah. Matt, this is just insane, man.
Yeah, you got that season pass money. You don't need all this small potato shit.
I mean, if you're Valve at this point, I mean, it's still crazy to me, honestly, that Epic Game Store hasn't taken a bigger chunk out of Steam. I mean, there really is something to be said for people just being like,
people just don't want to leave
this is what I'm used to.
Yeah,
or the library being so big on Steam.
I don't want another app on my computer. Right. It's like, really? They want to give you free games and like pay the developers more, but you just don't want to look at anything other than your Steam.
Now look, Epic doesn't take as big a cut as the other guys because they sued Apple over its 30% cut.
Right.
But still, basically, and look, they're giving away like 3 free games a week in some weeks on Epic Game Store, and they have to pay for those. Every time you accept that and you add one of those games to the library, Epic Game Store pays for that game. They give the money to the publisher for what you just got for free. And they do this with millions of people with 3 games a week every week. And now it's just crazy. There comes a certain point where you just can't even comprehend how much money certain companies have. And that is where the point we've got to with Epic at this point. Like Fortnite is it's crazy. And you realize that Cliff created Fortnite. Cliff Bleszinski. Now, what he created was completely different from what it became, but he was the lead on the team that did all the early work on Fortnite.
Yeah, before he left.
Right, before he left. It's really crazy to think about. But anyway, Epic Game Store, if you aren't using it, go. Like, they give away 2 free games a week, sometimes 3, but usually just 2, and they're great games. They're not like these crappy games that you don't want. They're great games. So, go sign up. I know some of you guys are like, I don't want another app or whatever. Go get the other app. You're turning down tons of awesome free games. And now they're so friendly to developers, like, morally, you should want to spend your money on Epic Game Store instead of somewhere else where the developers aren't getting as much of the cut. So anyway, Epic just continues its dominant trudge through the games industry. It really is insane.
They should probably spend some money on, like, making the store interface better, but
making the store front better.
Yeah, storefronts. Even on my computer, I think it runs a little sluggish.
It is, yeah. Like it takes a while to load. Yeah. And you click on something, you get the tiles like showing up in sequence or whatever. Yeah, it's a little slow. Not as bad as Madden though. Madden 24, man, it was like using a computer to surf the internet back in like 1995, playing Madden. That's how like slow it was. So anyway, that's the latest on Epic and Epic Game Store. Next up, Todd Howard of Bethesda, who is obviously the lead head honcho on Starfield and all of Bethesda's big RPGs. He shared this week that he now regrets announcing Elder Scrolls 6 so early.
No, I knew that when I talked to him after he announced it.
I mean, I regret him announcing the Elder Scrolls 6 so early.
I don't think anybody's happy about this.
We have run this trailer probably 300 times in GameFace.
Remember when they announced this and we ran this trailer and you were like, when is this coming? And I'm like, I don't know,
never.
2025? And you're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, this thing isn't even started yet.
Well, the truth is, I said, why would they show this trailer if it's that far away?
Because they knew Fallout 76 was going to be a disaster and they needed you to think about something else for a while.
and
that's
now,
also why they announced Starfield at the same time.
Well, now Todd Howard is saying, like, yeah, I shouldn't have announced that when I did, because he's had to answer questions about it now for like 7 years, and it's not going to go away. The questions are going to keep coming, so he regrets it. When do you think realistically that game's coming now?
2026, earliest.
I think that might be early.
Yeah, it's at earliest.
Yeah, that sounds about right, 2027 maybe? I hope I'm still alive when it comes out. It was interesting, them deciding to do Starfield instead of Elder Scrolls 6. I'll say that. That was pretty brave.
I mean, they had Starfield in development long before that.
Well, the one trailer says 25 years in the making.
Well, they had an idea 25 years ago. Yeah,
right.
But like it sounds like they've had this thing in cooking for about 7 years.
Yeah.
Even before, I mean, clearly, there was smoke from the fire before Fallout 4 even came out. Like, everybody knew that was happening. I mean, it's not like anyone didn't know Starfield was their next game by the time, even when they announced this however many years ago.
I mean, it's been 8 years since Fallout 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been probably 8 years on Starfield at this point.
Pre-production was definitely well underway by the time that came out.
Yep, absolutely. So, Anyway, God knows when we'll see Elder Scrolls 6, but our best guess is 2026, 2027, roughly. Some big news out of the Rockstar camp that maybe a lot of people wouldn't pick up on, but if you know Rockstar, you know it's a really big deal. Rockstar's lead writer left the company this week. His name is Michael Unsworth. He has worked on pretty much every single big Rockstar game, and certainly every big story-driven game from Rockstar. He's worked on both the Red Dead Redemptions. He works on Grand Theft Auto 4 and Grand Theft Auto 5. He is the narrative, or has been, the narrative force behind Rockstar for almost 2 decades at this point. That's a huge loss, because the other thing, too, is that they lost both of the brothers, and one of them was the other lead writer. So they've now lost 2 of their biggest writers. Now, I don't know if maybe his job is finished on Grand Theft Auto 6, and he's like, this is a good point for me to get out of here. But then, he's probably not going to be working on any of the DLC or any of the content that comes to Grand Theft Auto Online after that. So this is a huge loss for Rockstar. After losing the 2 Hauser brothers, to now lose this guy?
Well, I would argue that Rockstar could use some fresh writing injection.
Yeah.
It's a
little juvenile.
Not Red Dead 2 so much, but that was obviously on a different level. But I think GTA has been stuck in a middle school area since 3, really. But it didn't get super noticeable until more like 5, that you're like, oh, you're just not progressing this at all.
It was the same. But they're probably afraid to change it too much.
Yeah, maybe. There's an argument to be made that why mess with success, but also there was a tweet a while back that I thought really summed it up well, which was Rockstar artists, I am going to model this city down to the smallest blade of grass and the smallest leaf on every tree. And it's like, Rockstar writers, what about 5 gays burgers? And it's like, that pretty much sums that whole thing up, doesn't it? Yeah. There's nothing... the writing just does not match the tech and presentation on display.
Red Dead 2 did, though.
Red Dead did, but I don't... that's clearly they're not doing the wacky satire thing. They're still doing a social satire in Red Dead 2, but it's a little more restrained and can't quite rely on all... obviously Arthur can't pull out a cell phone and... talk to his cousin about going bowling every 5 minutes. When they have modern technology, I feel like they just sort of there's less effort to get things across in a more, I don't know, writerly fashion, I guess I would say. There's themes and parallels and metaphors in Red Dead 2 that relate to modern society that you can pick up if you're playing the game and going through it and recognizing what you're seeing. Whereas in a GTA game, it's more like, hey, it's really dumb that we eat fast food all the time, huh?
Yeah. Delfino in chat is contending that if you were to change Rockstar's games, that the games would not be as popular as they are.
It's possible.
That's what the fans want. They want the juvenile writing. They want the corny jokes. They want all that satire.
Maybe. It doesn't mean I gotta like them.
Yeah.
I think they're embarrassing.
I agree. I mean, particularly when you consider that it's the best-selling game in the industry, and it's like...
To some degree, Rockstar seems to agree, because I do believe Trevor is a commentary on the general GTA fan.
Maybe. He kind of is.
Yeah. To me, Michael is... I think that the 3 of them in that game are basically the 3... I think Michael is... the old style GTA protagonist. Franklin is the modern, at the time, 10 years ago, GTA protagonist. And Trevor is how these idiots actually play the game and ruin all the shit we did. I think that's what that is. I think that's what that three-way thing is. Trevor is the how people actually play GTA, and the other 2 characters are sort of like what Rockstar is trying to do with that. But it constantly gets short-circuited by the fact that Trevor is a homicidal sociopathic maniac, which is basically how we play that game, right?
I mean, I'll just say personally, I won't miss that at all.
No, and I don't know if this guy is who was doing that, and he's narrative director probably means he's doing much more high level stuff and planning than writing the actual script. Writing the jokes that you hear one-liners as you drive by people. That's probably not what he's doing.
He's probably figuring out where it's going to go narratively.
Yeah, but also I would imagine if you've been there forever and you're gonna leave that position, you probably have some proteges that you've trained up,
and also plenty of money.
Yeah,
plenty of money. So anyway, I don't know how this. I don't think it'll impact Grand Theft Auto all that much, but it could affect Rockstar's other games. But when the hell are we going to play another Rockstar game?
Whatever.
It's not like they put out a game more than once every
I'm sure they'll
decade.
find another writer between now and 2030.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's true. It's really crazy that they can get away.
I guess Bully
with.
2 is in there somewhere. That keeps surfacing every once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while, rumor will pop back up that it's still knocking around somewhere.
But 6 is, sounds like it's, less than a year and a half out.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yep. And then the final story for housekeeping today is another Starfield story. Obviously, embargo's breaking on the 31st, and the game comes out for some on the 31st if you paid, and then for everybody else on September 6th. So, big game, lots of stories circulating about it right now. But the latest one is that Starfield, and this is direct from Bethesda. This isn't me breaking embargo or anything or anybody else. This came straight from Pete Hines at Bethesda. He said that Starfield does not really get going until 80 hours in and after you finish the campaign.
I know, right? And Fallout has Fallout 3 has over 200 endings. Like, we've heard these before.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I think he's just saying, like, once you get, like, everything, the story mode's done and the quests are done and you've got all your abilities and you can build the big ships and modify things however you want, now you can go explore the universe at will. And, like, I think that's what he's saying. It's like the end game is really extensive if you want to do it.
Okay.
And I'm sure if you've worked on that game for as many years as they have, to them the meat of that game is going to be like seeing the world, seeing the galaxy, as opposed to the quest line, which is probably pretty small in comparison to what you've been working on in terms of putting 1,000 planets around. I don't know how well that take will survive contact with the enemy. You know what I mean? Like.
What about that message in general as the developer of a highly anticipated game to say things don't really get going until you've played it for 80 hours? You think it's a good message to send?
I mean, he's not saying it's not good until then. He's saying, like, there's still way more to do than just the main story.
I mean, he said really gets going.
Yeah, which is really kind of the same thing as, like, Diablo or something. Like, that's the same thing as, like, the game doesn't begin until the end game kind of thing. And obviously this is not the same sort of grind as I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. Obviously you're not doing seasons and ladders and stuff in this, which is probably, I doubt that Bethesda's going to put out a season update that breaks everything like Diablo 4 did. But like I get what he's saying. Somewhat in this, No Man's Sky had a little bit of that, where it's like you can go through the main thing and go through the black hole and complete the story or whatever, and now you're kind of free to explore whatever you want without it yelling at you about the Atlas path every 5 minutes.
Right.
It's a very minor version of this, I guess, but like. Yeah, I mean, I think in the sense of like how it's as opposed to Skyrim, where like the game began after you did the quest that got you the Thume, and then you never did a main quest again and just wandered around and fucked off for 400 hours, and you're like, oh, I should probably go see those dragon guys again.
And then it makes the end of the game so easy.
Yeah, you're like, oh, one fireball killed the final dragon. And
it was like Pactor played Tears of the Kingdom for like 200 hours, and he one-hit Ganon at the end of the game.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
It's like, and he kind of regretted it in hindsight. He's like, I just got so sucked into just doing whatever and maxing out everything that I had. He's like, I finally decided to finish the game, and it was so anticlimactic, he kind of regretted it.
Yeah,
ultimately.
I mean, RPGs that don't have a scaling element can definitely end up in that.
Yeah. Where you just walk through the end of the game. So
yeah, I mean, that was a very satisfying part of a lot of old school RPGs, was walking over the final boss.
At first it is. Like the first boss you one hit is like, wow.
But that's why games had things like the weapons in Final Fantasy. The optional bosses that were there that you couldn't outlevel. That's why those things existed. And I wonder if things like that exist in Starfield somewhere. That's not really a Bethesda staple usually. Maybe DLC. I don't know. Where are the dragons? Like, that's the thing that I'm curious. Obviously, you can't answer the question or not, but it's like I'm curious about the fact that one of the things that kind of keeps you going and interested in Skyrim is the dragons that are everywhere, and sort of like you never quite know like that's going to end. Oh, any moment this dragon could show up and it changes everything. Like, is there anything like that in space dragons, like what, or like big battleships, or I wonder if there's any equivalence in that would
I know
keep
nothing, man.
going.
I'm not gonna say anything about that.
But like I assume there's stuff that will happen after everything's done that like kind of keeps you interested somehow.
I just wonder if the casuals hear that and they're like,
The casuals will never know he said that.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's probably true.
He's talking to us. He's talking to those like, what if I only play this for 80 hours and then I'm done? Yeah. It's just like, well, there's a lot.
You just played for 80 hours.
There's 970 more planets to look at. So, I mean, granted, 900 of them are probably airless moons, but
yeah, you're right though. You're right. The audience who's tuned into that, who would hear that, would see that headline. You're right. They're core. They're not really casuals.
Yeah.
And do you think for the core that that's a good message to send?
I don't know. I mean, I like what he said there, but also, like, I've heard Bethesda talk about their games like weirdos before. I mean, like I said, Todd Howard said that there were over 200 endings in Fallout 3.
Right.
And technically that's true if you count all the different combinations of those slides at the end that tell the ending of all those main and side quests you could do. There are over 200 combinations of that. That's not really what people are going to take from having someone saying that, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So in this sense, it's like maybe for some people, like I could see that being true for me because I like to just fly around scanning planets and looking at stuff.
You play games like Pactor played Zelda.
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly how you play.
In fact, we're going to talk about a game that I think I kind of ruined for myself doing that.
Oh, really?
Later today.
Interesting.
And not the one I thought would be that one.
Yeah.
Weirdly. But if you don't want me to poke around everywhere, what are you putting treasure everywhere for?
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Like.
Game logic. Hashtag game logic. So anyway, I know y'all are really excited for Starfield, and you should be. And I think.
Oh, should we?
I mean, because of all the trailers that they put out, Matt.
Embargo.
We'll get Jaffe in here. We'll just tell you everything.
Pete Hines is going to pull off his Luna disguise. That gotcha.
That would be hilarious. So anyway,
that's why she's yelling.
We're right because he's in there.
Get out of me, Bethesda executive.
That's funny. So anyway, we're right on the cusp of Starfield for all. So it's not surprising that half of our housekeeping stories would somehow be at least tangentially related to the game. Again, we will have coverage of Starfield on embargo break on the 31st, so just a couple more days to wait. Our patrons will have more than one piece of content for you guys that you guys will enjoy around the game. So look forward to that. And with that, I think it's time to get on with the show. Shortest housekeeping we've had in I don't know how long, Matt.
Yeah, it was only 47 minutes. What do you...
Well, actually,
not even that because we had to restart.
Remember, we had to restart. Yeah. So anyway, and that's because we actually have a bunch of games to talk with you guys about today on GameFace, which is exciting. Also, by the way, I've been putting together dossier for September, which is our rundown of the games that you should be keeping your eye on every month that are going to come out. And September is awesome, like really awesome, Matt. There are 10 games that I would recommend people buy in September.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming out.
So we're pretty much from right now until the end of the year, we're going to have big stuff on GameFace pretty much every week. It makes my job so much easier to just be able to come in and just talk about the games that we're playing, and we're about to hit that point. So anyway, we're about to get into GameFace 356 proper, but before that, here's a word. Let me get on the file first. Here's a word from our awesome sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. So I had my first fantasy football draft on Sunday of the season. I'm in 3 leagues, and I had my first draft on Sunday, and I had a few people come over for the first time since before COVID, Matt. We finally had some people show up in person for a fantasy football draft. It was awesome. It was really nice to be around other people in my league for the first time in like 4 years. But anyway, I busted out the LS Cream. I had it up there on the bar. Everybody that showed up asked me what it was. I told them what it was. They all tried it, and they all loved it. And I think that's really the key. Because, most people, I think, are just conditioned to buy Baileys. They're just like, if I'm going to get that, I'm going to buy Baileys. you got to get people to try it. So if you have already bought a bottle of LS Cream, I highly recommend that you turn your friends onto it, because you'll see as soon as they taste it, they're going to go buy their own bottle. That's exactly what happened with at least one of the people who drafted with me on Sunday. So a big thanks to LS Cream. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Awesome website, particularly for a liquor. It's really slick and really cool. Tons of drink recipes, all those cool drinks you just saw in the ad. You can learn how to make them there. Again, go to creamls.com/sifted. And with that, it's time to get on with GameFace 356. Normally, Matt, coming off of Gamescom week, the first topic in GameFace is Gamescom. It's just the way it is, as it should be. It's usually a gigantic show with lots of news being generated. However, this year, that is not the case, because Gamescom was, to me, a huge letdown this year. And so it's actually stacked on down the show rundown. We're going to start this show talking about Armored Core 6, which is easily the biggest release of the week. And I would argue that.
Yeah.
We have another game we're going to talk about that's close, but I think Armored Core is probably...
In terms of actual mind share, it's definitely the biggest. I mean, I'm sure maybe EA would disagree with you on that. But
for sure.
We don't really care what EA thinks.
We don't. So. No, we stopped doing that a long time ago. If you watched my review of Madden last week, you know I stopped caring about what EA thought. So Armored Core 6 is a mech combat game made by From Software. And From Software, as most of you probably know, our audience knows this, are the developers of Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Demon Souls, these really hard action RPGs. But because people have fell in love with those games so much, they've brought back this franchise that how long has it been since they made an Armored Core? A decade or more?
Something like that. Verdict Day was the last one. And that was, I want to say that was 2013?
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
It's 360.
So it's been roughly a decade since they've come back to the Armored Core franchise, and I have a feeling a lot of people are going to give this game a shot now, because here's the catalog of From Software.
This is my Armored Core collection. This is all of them except Verdict Day, which I never got around to for whatever reason, and the portable ones, because fuck that.
Yeah,
like those things will give you arthritis.
Yeah.
This is I've played every one of these games. I'm just pointing out, I am not an Armored Core newbie.
No, and that's...
To me, From Software makes Armored Core, and Dark Souls is the new thing.
Right, and King's Quest. Like, that's what I know From Software.
Well, King's Field.
King's Field, sorry.
Which really is, Dark Souls is an evolution of King's Field when it comes down to it.
I wouldn't be surprised if someday we get a new King's Field.
To be fair, King's Quest is also as mean as King's Field.
It is, you're right. They're both evil. Yeah. So anyway, Matt obviously is not an Armored Core noob, so if you're trying to figure out whether you want to buy this or not, he's probably the best person that you can talk to about this game. I also played it. I did find some time to play Armored Core 6. I played actually a good bit of it in the midst of also playing Starfield over the last couple weeks, which has been really hard, like juggling all the work I've been doing to get content ready for while I'm gone, with playing games for GameFace for the week that's about to happen, while playing Starfield for coverage that was 2 weeks later. It's been like I've been like a master juggler for the last couple weeks, but I did get some time with this. I don't think I spent as much time as you. I think I've played around maybe 7 or 8 hours of it, something like that.
You played more than me, bro.
Really?
I'm on the end of chapter 3.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know where you are in that regard. I've played a lot. I've done a lot more.
I moved to chapter 3 like yesterday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot. I've done a fair amount of grinding, like repeating missions to buy parts and refit things, because that's what Armored Core is.
Yeah.
And then because you hit the thing that I am most surprised by in this game is that they just made an Armored Core game.
They really did.
Like there is. Other than the obvious graphical improvements from the last, there is no attempt to expand this game beyond its existing audience. And I don't have a problem with that, because I love Armored Core.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to play another Armored Core for the first time in forever. But it kind of shocks me that they didn't Elden Ring this thing. Not in the sense of making it open world,
I know.
But in the sense of like, I don't know, doing something with it that would engage today's average player a little more, who like maybe loved Elden Ring and was going to give them a shot because the same people, and maybe, I'm not saying it would be an open world mech game or anything, or a Dark Souls Armored Core or whatever.
But it could be.
It could have been, but it shouldn't be. But I would argue that, like, and I don't just mean, like, look, the missions are, all that stuff's fine. The fact that the story is still told through a bunch of opaque corporate logos talking to you through voiceover in weird, like, passive-aggressive message sendings in emails is bizarre to me, because that's always been what Armored Core is. But I mean,
like, people watching this now,
like, you're not even going to put faces of these people up to, like, talk to you like codec Metal Gear style or something. I mean, I'm not saying that needs to be there for me to enjoy it, but it just shocks me that they didn't.
The presentation
plus
is,
the presentation more.
The presentation is low
sense?
I'm sure people are watching this cinematic right now, and they're like, Shane, what the hell are you talking about?
The cinematic's amazing. You never see anything.
You never see anything like this ever again.
You see, like, for every time a boss shows up, you get something sort of equivalent to this, but, like, this is not how the game is told.
Let's be honest, though, Matt. From Software has got away with doing that in its other games, no problem. And people actually kind of praise it. They're like, I kind of like how it's not overt with its storytelling. Well, From Software says, thank you very much. We just saved $30 million not doing cinematics for our game, and you guys say it's better for it. Yeah. Well, in this game, to me, this game needed more.
Yeah, I mean, Vincent does make the valid point that they probably didn't realize Elden Ring was going to be what it was when they're making this, which is true. It's just they I don't know, they didn't. I would even argue that they didn't plus this in comparison to the previous game, even on the level that they plus Demon's Souls in comparison to Kingsfield 4.
I'd agree with that.
Because that Demon's Souls is clearly an evolution of the Kingsfield concepts. Yep. And, like, if you play the most recent Kingsfield, which I think was PS2, like, you will see where that series comes from. You will see where the Souls games come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
And actually, I would argue that the closest if you want to really approximate this to something in the more recent From Aveum, I would say that the closest comparison is Sekiro.
Yeah.
Incredibly fast, like, unforgiving action that relies entirely on how well you can handle what's being thrown at you on a moment-to-moment basis, which I like. Look, I like this game. I think it's too fucking hard.
But you found it too hard.
I think the bosses are too hard for the missions are fine, and then you hit these bosses and you're like, what the fuck is this?
It's insane. The missions are so freaking easy. It's almost hilarious.
And then you hit the boss and you're like, what the hell?
It's like you're playing a different game.
Two shots. You're dead. And you got to go, like, figure out what parts it wants and how to get around. You know, like, okay, this thing's got the first boss has a big shield on it. I need vertical firing weapons that'll hit them over the shield so they can.
I just hacked the crap out of him with the energy sword.
I mean, yeah, but you can't hit him in the front with that.
Yeah, you can.
Not well.
Well, you just fly straight at him, and you just get right up into his grill and just start hacking. And I beat him in like 10 seconds.
The Juggernaut?
The very first boss, yeah.
Juggernaut.
Whatever the big boss is, yeah. The very first boss.
On the top of the wall.
No,
No, that's not the first.
No. I'm talking about that first boss that you fight in the first mission at the end.
Oh, no, that's the tutorial boss. Yeah, I'm talking about the Juggernaut, the first.
Oh, yeah, you can't beat him that way.
No, that that first boss, and they apparently consider that a mini boss.
Okay.
Because it's not official or whatever. But that boss.
It has its own health bar, which usually is my determination for a boss.
Well, so do all the armored cores you run into as well.
One of my big complaints about this is you can't tell when they're about to die. It's really hard to tell when the action's happening, like whether the enemies that you're fighting, the rank and file enemies, are almost dead. Like
they have life bars.
But how do they work? There's like the yellow bar along the top, but the yellow bar. What does that mean?
Well, it's like that's why I make the Sekiro comparison. Is like they have a stun bar and a life bar.
So you have to break
the stun bar is on top and the life bar. You don't have to stun them to hurt them, but to kill them. But when you hit a stunned enemy, you're doing what's called a direct hit, which gives you basically is a critical hit damage. And there are upgrades you can get that up your percentage of damage when you do that. And when you hit them with this, see, that's the balance of the sword. Is like the sword is the best way to get their stun bar up to stun them, but the sword is also the best thing to hit them with when they're stunned.
Yeah.
So you kind of there's that balance, and this is the thing that first boss teaches you is previous armored cores. If you ran into a boss like that, if you ran into even like a big enemy like that, you would stand back and you would snipe them. You would basically like hide behind buildings and you jump out and poke out and spin around.
I tried that at first.
Oh no, you'll get destroyed because he fires those hellfire missiles that burn the ground,
and they also arc around the buildings.
Yeah,
too.
They're the homing that's teaching you you need to get in close, get under him where he can't hit those missiles, and then jump up, hit him with a sword, stun him, unload, and keep going.
That's what I did.
It's to teach you that this game wants you to be aggressive in a way that no armored core has in the past. Which is interesting. Like, I would say that if you're going to have taken any lessons from the Souls or Sekiro in this game, it's that they made melee combat way more relevant, and even to the point that you can have a shield weapon that you can parry. You do the last minute parry with and get no damage from it, which I haven't really used much because the laser sword is way more valuable.
Yeah, I mean the sword works on everything. Like during the missions, like it just destroys. Like you can take out a turret with one slash, like instead of having to unload your gun on them. Like I just found that I just relied on the sword like as much as I could.
The sword is absolutely, I mean, so far, early game, the sword is absolutely the thing, your secret weapon. Yeah. I mean, it's the best thing against other ACs, it's the best thing to, like, take out, various, even the big bosses that you have to take apart piece by piece. Like, if you can get in and use the sword, at least until you get the plasma rifles. I mean, that was always my thing back in the day, was like, grind until I can get the plasma weapons, because that's your best stuff. And in the old games, they didn't use ammo, so you didn't have to pay for ammo costs at the end of the mission and have that detracted from your reward. That is not true in this game. You do pay for ammo for everything. But you get paid so much that it doesn't matter. I have not. The money is not a problem.
No, it's not at all. I have plenty of money. And the problem really, so the way this game works is they're all self-contained missions. So you go out, you complete the mission, you come back, you buy all your stuff, you sell all your stuff, you figure out like how you want to configure your mech, and then you go out for the next mission. And then maybe you die in that mission, you figure out like, oh, I need some other thing on my right arm or some other thing on my left arm, and you go back, you adjust your loadout, you go back, you try the mission again, you'll probably beat it, and then you'll fight a boss that'll kick your ass like 10 times in a row. And that's pretty much like the loop of this game. It does feel a little bit like a throwback. Like, I haven't played a game that just has these discrete missions that it sends you out into for it feels like a while.
It's an old school approach, for sure.
Looks gorgeous though.
Very good.
The in-game graphics.
When you're up, I mean, part of the problem with the fact that it wants you to get up close and personal with the bosses is the camera's not really equipped to handle that.
Yeah,
which is annoying to me. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just got big clumsy fingers, but like, I constantly engage that assault boost thing for clicking the left stick by accident. Like all that, I'm like, stop jumping around like a fucking mosquito. You did.
Well, the other thing too is the right stick. It controls the camera unless you're flying, and then it makes you do these crazy like dashes in like midair. And I've actually found that like that's effective to like fight enemies. Like I almost discovered it on accident.
Height is actually really good. Like one of the if you can use the quad leg things that lets you do a hover. Yeah, like you can just rain death down on people, and they can't do much about it until you get to the boss, and then you're like, well, these are not the legs to use for this. Pro tip that goes back to Armored Core 1. The tank treads are the best. Yeah, like the best builds will always use the tank treads because you can carry all the heavy shit.
And it's like everything is rated in like 80 category. It's almost like overkill. It's like I became annoyed after a while of having to sort through all the parts and try to figure out like which parts are actually an improvement and which ones are just a sidestep, saying like, oh, this protects you more against this very specific type of attack, and maybe that works for a boss, but it doesn't work as well with just a typical mission enemies. Like, I got tired of having to sort through the minutia of all the parts. Yeah. And
I mean, they're all pretty much the same stats that they've always had. So like, to me,
you know them by heart.
I know them, but also it's like the thing you got to remember about Armored Core is like there isn't necessarily better, except for something that gives you more energy or more armor. Yeah. You're really looking for what suits your play style the best, or for what you realize is the build that you need to use to beat whatever boss you're up against at this moment. Like, I've definitely used and bought some parts for some of the bosses in this. Especially
just look at how many freaking parts there are.
Especially the Chapter 2 boss.
Crazy.
Like, I built a mech that I would never use normally for that because it needed specific things. But then you have those parts, and you can kind of go back and if you want them, you can. I never sell anything in this.
Well, you can also sell your parts, and I think you get full price back for what you paid.
You do get a pretty good price for them.
Yeah, which I thought was
not always true in this series. Sometimes you get screwed in some of those games.
I thought that was cool. I'm like, okay, so I can basically respec without much of a penalty whenever I want.
They give you a lot of freedom in that. One of the sad things I saw some people comment on this on Twitter. Is like one of the sad things I saw was some of the younger people who like have never played Armored Core, like didn't even know that there's been more than 6 games. Playing this now, and how cool they thought it was that you can just change all the colors of the mech from the beginning without having to unlock anything. And it's just like, yes, kids, that's how it used to be. You didn't have to pay for extra paint back in the day.
Yep, it wasn't a microtransaction.
Yeah, you've all been playing Fortnite too long because that's not how these games used to work.
Yeah, they're all conditioned.
Yeah. It's like, oh, they just give you colors for free. Yeah. The rainbow should be everyone's.
The other thing
Let
I should
the
say,
mechs be gay.
the other thing I should say that's really important about this is if you are interested in buying it on PlayStation, buy the PlayStation 4 version because you can buy it for $10 cheaper and you get a free PlayStation 5 upgrade. Instead of paying the extra $10 for it, that's
interesting.
Pretty shady, if you ask me.
I got it on PC. So.
Oh, okay.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous.
It is pretty. It's a pretty game. Like, in-engine is very pretty, for sure.
It's so weird playing an Armored Core game with no drawing.
Yeah.
Like, that used to be one of the big problems, especially on the PS1. It's like, oh, by the time they draw the mech in, they're already shooting at you. You know,
yeah.
like,
well, the other thing, too, about this, though, is that each level is not that big. Because you just go out, you have to complete very specific objectives. You complete them, you go back to the base, you rearm, you tweak your mech or whatever.
There's little areas, maybe you like usually because there's I can't remember the name of it. It's like the ledger system or the system where you have to defeat certain enemies and they log them.
Yeah,
and like
it's
you get
called
bonuses.
something log. Yeah,
something log. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like if you go off the beaten path, sometimes you'll find a little area and you have to fight like a stronger AC or something over there.
Yeah, you can stumble across, like, and you don't have to beat them either. You can complete the mission without defeating those.
Yeah, but to get the bonus for that log thing, you got to beat them. Which usually what you're going to do is you're going to do the mission and just do the mission.
Yeah.
And then you'll go back and replay the mission
to beat them.
To beat that or to find the hidden weapons in the mission or whatever. Because you still get paid for replaying that mission the same amount you got before.
You do. It doesn't.
Which is great. If you need to buy more parts for a boss, you go back and do like a couple of the the high paying missions you just did in that chapter, and you can probably afford whatever you need.
Yeah, all that stuff is very user friendly.
And that is a difference from a lot of the old the harder Armored Core games in the past. You could hit a wall where you didn't have the right build for something for a mission. And you couldn't, if you tried to go back, couldn't really replay stuff, and every time you played something, you would basically lose money. If you got destroyed, you'd lose money. You know what? I don't know if you remember, but on Armored Core 1, you remember the difficulty slider on that?
I don't.
So the way the difficulty was balanced in this game, and Dark Souls fans will recognize some of this a little bit, if you died enough, you kept dying, you could get retrying, but you were losing all your money and you didn't have any more money and you couldn't pay for stuff and you were kind of going into missions completely under-equipped. And if you died enough times, I don't remember how many times it was, there would be a cutscene of like a surgery happening and you were turned into like, I don't remember the name in it.
I don't remember this at all.
Because you didn't play long enough to die that many. It was like 7 or 8 times. It was like you had to die a lot.
Okay.
And like the game was like taking mercy on you. So in easy mode in Armored Core and some of the early ones, you'd have this surgery done to the character. You'd see this like little cutscene out of nowhere you hadn't seen before. And suddenly you had this bonus ability. And that could happen like I think 4 or 5 times. And if you died enough, you had basically a super powered like new type pilot who could like have eternal energy and like extra double the armor, and like, it was things like that. It was like basically almost cheat codes the game would give you if you just sucked that bad. And that was like that was the whole thing of like, have you beaten Armored Core without having the surgery? And like that was the easy mode. You couldn't choose it, but it was sort of like when you die enough in Devil May Cry and they're like, would you like to
the
bump
Ninja
that
Dog
sucker
mode
down,
and Ninja Gaiden
loser? It was that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And they didn't
It's like
do
a
that at all.
Scarlet Letter, basically.
And as a matter of fact, if you're interested in Armored Core and you wouldn't like to play one that is not going to punish you forever, Armored Core 4 Answer is the easiest game in the series.
Isn't it called 4 Answer or something?
4 Answer.
I think it is 4 Answer. Yeah.
Well, it's 4 Answer. Yeah.
Right,
That's what I said.
Armored Core 4 Answer.
No.
Or Armored Core 4 Answer.
4 Answer.
Yeah.
FOR.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is an expansion, like a follow-up to Armored Core 4, number 4.
Yeah.
But the name of the game is Armored Core FOR.
Yeah.
Answer.
Which is such a weird name.
They always do. It's like the spin-off of Armored Core 5 was Armored Core Verdict Day, because it starts with a V.
Fires of Rubicon. I still don't know what that means, and I played
Rubicon is the planet you're on.
Right.
So you're basically playing both sides in a civil war on the planet Rubicon.
Yeah, you're like a mercenary, basically. They hire you to go
You're always
out
a mercenary with the codename Raven.
Yeah.
Which is like the least surprising thing in this game is where you find the mercenary ID early on.
And you're Raven.
He's like, the codename is, and it's like, oh no, the boss is here. And afterwards, like, your codename is Raven. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been here before.
Yeah.
And eventually the arena opens up, which is sort of a staple. Like, I actually like the arena stuff like almost more than I always enjoyed that a lot. There are Armored Core games like Master of Arena, which is literally just the arena. I think Armored Core Master of Arena and Ninebreaker are both just arena games, and those are literally if you just want to have a different build to figure out how to beat each like enemy. This one's interesting in that, like, you actually do fight a lot of enemies that are part of the main story, and they will react differently to you after you've beaten them in the arena, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that is cool. I didn't know that.
Like, you get some respect from a couple of them. Because nobody likes you because you're a mercenary,
right?
And they all work for these corporations. As though
you
that's
play both
better.
sides, yeah.
Which is again like this. It's so much. I mean, you could put Armored Core 1 in your machine and be like, oh yeah, this is exactly the same series. Like, right down to the emails from all these corporations. You got to figure out what corporation stands for what, and they're evil in this way. And these, Balaam is a bunch of like over militarized weirdos, and like Arquebus is. It basically wants to stomp out the locals, and like the locals don't have a corporation, but I imagine you probably start working for them eventually.
Yeah, I started tuning that crap out after like the 4th mission. I was just like, I don't care about any of this nonsense. Like, I didn't even. It turned into a podcast game for me after the first few. missions.
This is like, again, this is the From Software thing where it's like there's a story here, but you're gonna have to do it yourself.
If you want it, you're gonna have to dig for it. Yeah, and
at least it's all voiced now, as opposed to just like endless text emails, which is what they used to be.
Yeah. That's true.
And every once in a while, you're like, you've unlocked the emblem for Arquebus. I'm like, why in the world would I want that on my fucking robot? I don't.
This game, though, compared to most modern games, is very simple. I mean, you can just see, because our discussion of this game is already starting to wind down. There's not a lot more to say about it, honestly.
No, it is Armored Core.
Yeah.
And at its heart, Armored Core is a PS1 game, and it hasn't really changed that much.
And I think fans will be happy with that. If I'm thinking now, it's like, how do I recommend this game to somebody right now? Because you've got all these big games out there already. You've got Starfield that's about to launch. From September on, the whole rest of the year is just loaded with amazing games. Like, it's hard for me, unless you're an Armored Core fan, it's hard for me otherwise to recommend this to somebody.
Yeah, it's hard to know if you'll like it, too, because, like, if you don't already know Armored Core, it's like, well, I mean, you're seeing what you're seeing, really.
I mean, this is the game.
The thing you got to remember is the game is the game has difficulty spikes like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Like you'll hit a boss and you'll just like, I mean, the first level you're going through that the tutorial level, and that fucking helicopter shows up at the end. And, I'd been kind of walking through it at that point, and it showed up and killed me in 2 missile bursts. And I was like, oh, what the fuck?
Well, it killed me a bunch of times until I figured out, use a sword. And once I used a sword, I killed it in like 10 seconds.
Well, it was like, I think that took me like 5 or 6 tries, because I was trying to beat it the way I'd normally beat an Armored Core boss. And eventually, I guess I'll move in and try to use the sword, because every once in a while, you'd run into an enemy where like, oh, you just hit him with a sword or whatever you got, melee style, and because it always did a lot of damage, but it was never very useful. Like, the sword in this game definitely like auto targets way better than it ever has.
It's
in the
a
other
destroyer,
games.
I think. It wipes out the rank and file guys like no problem. Like, you can see it in the B-roll. Just watch me use it.
And it recharges real fast.
Yeah.
Like there's no downside really.
Yeah.
Other than having to close in. If you're dealing with somebody that has like sniper, like laser sight guys are a problem sometimes. Like, gotta get around.
I lean on it a lot.
You just want to go in that stuff. You just go down on the bottom of the thing, pop up behind them, and hit them with the thing. And it saves ammo.
Yep. Kevin Rafa is asking, is this the best Armored Core?
No. I would say absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean,
I haven't played anywhere near. I mean, I totally bend the knee to you on this one.
It's good. I mean, it's good. I mean, it's the best looking Armored Core. It plays very well. It's so fast. Like,
it is.
There is an element of this that feels like, oh, this is what they always wanted it to play like, and it plays. Because there is a feeling of old Armored Cores, especially before and in the kind of PS2 era, that they feel very kind of stiff and and there's still a little bit of that to this, but like it's much less.
There are moments where I feel like I'm not in as much control as I would like.
Yeah, there's some of that.
Yeah,
but like way less than the others. I mean, if I'm gonna go through the others, like I definitely like For Answer and I think I like For Answer and Silent Line and probably Ninebreaker more than this.
What
but
a run that series had on PS2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 PS2 games.
Yep.
3 Xbox 360 games.
7 PS2 games.
I mean, that just shows you, though, how things have changed in the industry in general.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get one of these for this generation, and that's it. That's all you're going to get.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and I think most From fans are okay with that.
Well, also, like a bunch of these, if this was today, a bunch of these would have been DLC.
Yeah.
There's no way Nexus, Ninebreaker, and Last Raven would be their own games
That's
today.
true. Yeah, would have just been extra content.
They've just been extra content for Armored Core 3.
Yeah.
Which really is what they are. Like, that's what
they're expansion packs, basically.
That's what From used to do, is they'd make one, and then they'd use that system as a basis to make 3 more, basically. Yeah. And 4 is interesting. So 4 is interesting because it was the first one on the 360, and they sort of targeted more of an American audience a little bit. They made, especially with For Answer, where they made it easier. You always know when From's targeting America because they make it easier.
Yeah.
For Answer is the easiest game in the series by far. But then, like, really, the evolution of that turned out to be Chrome Hounds more than anything else, which is sort of Armored Core with a bunch of new ideas crammed into it. And then that crashed and burned pretty hard, and that was the end of that. You'll never see a Chrome Hounds 2, I don't think.
Erebus is asking, he says, I played 1, 2, and 4 and thought they all sucked. Is this going to change my mind?
No.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It is the same game, but prettier.
Prettier and a little smoother with the controls.
Refined.
Yeah, but if the basic combat of the original ones you played didn't do it for you, this is probably not going to change your mind.
Yep. I'd agree with that. So anyway, that's Armored Core 6. Again, don't forget what I said about the PS4 and PS5 versions. Just buy the PS4 version, you get the free upgrade. It is a little weird because even when you do that, it forces both the PS4 version and the PS5 version on the home screen of your PS5. You just got to make sure that you're selecting the right one when you go to play. I even tried to delete the PS4 version, and when I booted up my PS5 again, the PS4 version had reappeared in the home screen. So I don't know what's up there, but I do know that I did not spend an extra penny, and I got the PlayStation 5 version. So just keep that in mind if you are interested. But again, Matt, and it's not really, it doesn't have that much to do with the quality of the game. It's just really hard to recommend this game right now. If you're talking about somebody who doesn't have an endless well of disposable income and has to make some tough decisions about what games they buy or don't buy, it's hard for me to say, buy this instead of Baldur's Gate 3, or buy this instead of Starfield, or buy this instead of, like, the 10 other awesome games that are coming here in the next, 3 months across all the different platforms.
And if you do know you'd like this better, you already own it.
You bought it on launch day.
You're already there.
Yeah. So I don't know how much utility GameFace has for a game like this one at this moment in time, honestly, but I think it's always good to kind of share our takes, particularly because you're so well versed in the franchise.
And the Abram asks how the PvP is. I haven't played a ton of it, but mostly it's if you would like to be destroyed faster than you know what's happening, go play the PvP. You can't really get into the PvP on this until you've gone through in the game enough to unlock the actual good parts.
Because you got to remember, a lot of the weapons in this lock on. And so any competitive game where that happens, like, you really need to learn the ins and outs of the game before you jump into that competitive space.
Yeah, and because of how it works, you're going to get builds that you just can't compete with.
Yeah.
So
somebody who's worked on that build for like a week or whatever, it's going to annihilate.
And for all the anti-cheat software stuff that loads up at the beginning of this game on PC, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of that shit seemed a little sketchy to me, but.
So anyway, that's Armored Core 6. It is available for pretty much everything except for Switch. This is one of those last stragglers of third-party games that has both a PS4 and an Xbox One version. Those are becoming increasingly rare. And that was one thing I did notice throughout Gamescom, was that almost every game at Gamescom was just PC and next gen. Most of them had dropped the PS4. The indies haven't yet, but most of the games.
Apparently, there's a $60 bundle of the PS4 and PS5 version.
Oh, interesting.
That's just what it costs.
Oh, okay. Then why do they sell separate PS4 and PS5 versions?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen a couple things that's like old style, early PS5 stuff where you had to buy the PS4 version and you just got a free upgrade to the PS5 version. I don't know why they.
But there are separate SKUs, separate PS5 and PS4 versions in don't know. Why would that be?
I don't know. I guess if you want the PS4 version for some reason.
I guess.
Does the PS4 version run faster on the PS5? Because that's happened a few times.
I doubt it. I mean, I don't know, because I'm playing the PS5 version. It lets you download the PS5 version. With the PS4 disc just acts as a key to download the PS5 version if you want it.
Right, but I'm saying the PS4 version of some games runs better.
That's true.
So maybe that's why. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Interesting, nevertheless. But anyway, don't pay $70 for this game is what I'm getting at.
Vincent says the PS4 version is locked at 60 on the PS5. So that might be in advance. I don't know what it runs at. The PS5 version.
I never even played the PS4 version. I went straight to PS5, so I just assumed it's going to be the superior version. So
PS5 is mostly 60.
It runs like grease lightning.
So PS4 version, apparently, if you're really sensitive to 60 frames a second, that's slightly better. It runs like. I mean, it runs like I've got everything maxed out on the PC, and it runs like crazy.
It runs like a Banshee on PS5 too. Like I just play the PS5 version. I would recommend. So there you go. That's Armored Core 6, available for pretty much everything. This might be one of those games that, like, you earmark and later on there's a sale. Maybe at the holidays there's a sale. Buy 2 get 1 free. That type of thing is where I would recommend to keep an eye out for Armored Core 6.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And it doesn't here's the thing to note. The thing to know really about the difficulty spikes is not that like, oh, the difficulty spike. It's like there is no hint as to what you need to build to fight these things.
No.
It's not always obvious.
It's trial and error.
And if you don't want to look it up online, you're going to have to just sort of guess.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, oh, like you wouldn't guess, like the Juggernaut, the chapter 1 boss. You wouldn't guess that one of the ways around him is to use weaker parts.
Right.
But it is. You use the reverse legs and move around like a bat behind him, and it doesn't matter that you have less life, because you're never going to get hit.
That's a lot of what this game is, I think, with the bosses, is trying to figure out a way where they can't even attack you at all.
Yeah, the other thing to
get in
note
their blind spot, get up underneath them.
The other thing to note, even though the camera goes nuts when you do that sometimes,
it does.
The other thing to note is do the training missions.
Yeah.
The training missions.
If you've never played before,
well, they not only teach you stuff, they give you some of the best parts in the game for free.
That's right.
A couple of things you get from those are really important to have around for later builds.
And again, remember what we said earlier, like the parts in this, it's not like you get a new part and it's just guaranteed to be better. It will be better in some areas, but weaker
different.
in others. Yeah, it's just different.
Like one of the grenade launchers you get from the training mission, super useful for raining hell down on certain enemies and a particular boss.
Yeah.
Useless
everywhere
otherwise.
Else. Yeah.
Like,
because it's hard to hit.
Things are very, very, very much situational. And one of the big things, and there were systems like this before. I don't remember anything as robust before. The ACOS upgrade system in this, that eventually you get through the arena, you get these chips in the arena that you can upgrade, permanent upgrades to the armored core you're flying, and there's a bunch of different ones you can get. The most important things are there are upgrades to damage reduction. If you max it out, you can get 15% less damage for everything that hits you. Super important. You can get more repair from your repair kits. You get like 3 repair kits on each mission, like Estus flasks. A little bit creeping in there, which is important because you need to be able to heal if you get hit with a bad shot. And then there's other stuff where you can unlock various things that are sort of bonus abilities. And one of the things you can unlock, and this used to be in some of the old ones too, but you can do an upgrade to the back mounts. So instead of only being able to carry back weapons, you can carry 4 handheld weapons, and you can get another upgrade that lets you jettison weapons. So if you run out of ammo on a weapon, you jettison it, and all of a sudden you can move faster because you weigh less.
Yeah.
And those are really important too, especially moving forward into the later game, I think.
The other thing I would say too,
so I'm already hitting points where I'm like, I need all the weapons I have, but at this point in the mission, I need to be able to move faster than I can move right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to the different legs because they're too weak. But like that's the balance of Armored Core. Is like you're constantly rethinking what you built as soon as you go into a mission.
The one thing I would recommend too is like you can have so many weapons on your mech at a time. If you're having problems, just build your mech with a different weapon type. Because then you can just try them all. You can see which one really works. You're probably not going to win the fight, but you go back, you rebuild your mech knowing what actually works. So that helps you a little bit with the trial and error.
Yeah, and it's very, like, you might think that like the laser or plasma weapons are sort of the default best, and they are good. Mm-hmm. But there are enemies that you are not going to be able to reliably hit with them because they fire so slow.
Yeah.
Or they're resistant to energy.
Right.
And then if you swap out to like the baseline machine gun you got in mission 1, you'll just burn through them.
It's
like,
really weird.
Like you gotta experiment with some of the things you're running into, and especially learn how to knock their stun meter down. Which is not something I recall being such a big deal in the previous Armored Cores. That is something they seem to have taken from Sekiro. God, people love stun meters these days. I mean, Final Fantasy 16 did it. I mean, a lot of Final Fantasies have done it. Jedi Survivor has it. Like that's the hotness right now.
It seems like
hitting something with a sword until it can't move anymore is just that's video games. In 2023.
So anyway, there you go. This Armored Core 6 again. It's available for everything but Switch. But we recommend that you maybe look for it a little bit on down the road after you get through the next couple months of awesome game releases. Next up, we're going to talk about a game that I did not play, and I wish I could have, because I'm very interested in this game, but I've just been too swamped with work, and luckily, Matt did play it. And usually with this game in particular, it would have been me playing it and you not playing it. The roles are reversed this time, and that game is Immortals of Aveum. It is... Everybody lazily is calling it Call of Duty with magic spells,
which is what it is.
Is that? Do you really feel that way now that you've spent some time with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm about halfway through the game.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because like I just got the achievement for like finishing the chapter I finished, and it said has a big 5 on it. Mm-hmm. But I'm in chapter 7, so I don't know what that 5 means. I don't know what happened there.
Might just be a bug, maybe.
Either that or the achievements miscounted the prologue or something. I don't know.
That could be.
I think I'm about halfway through. It feels like I'm closing in on the end of Act 2.
Okay. I'll say this, Matt.
We're about to hit the lowest point, is what I'm saying.
Okay. I've read, a couple where we've curated reviews, so I have to kind of browse them and get the gist of what people are saying. And I'll be honest with you. A lot of the reviews I've been reading for this, it doesn't feel like people can quantify why they don't like it.
Yeah.
It's like they praise all this stuff about it, and they'll be like, but it's not very good. And I'm like, okay, well, why is it not very good? Maybe you can help us. It is,
I actually don't dislike it. I like it more than I thought I would.
Okay.
Because if you recall, when the trailers would come up, I was very skeptical
you're
about
dismissive
it. I was just like,
yeah.
this doesn't look very interesting. And it's not, really. What you're playing isn't. I would argue that sort of what people are maybe failing to get at in the things you're referring to is that I do think the game feels a little bit less than the sum of its parts.
Interesting.
And what you're actually doing, like what you're actually playing in the shooting, is really uninspired.
No, really.
There's blue. So the premise is you are.
What's the story behind? Let's just
so
start
you're
from
in
the
you are a guy named Jack who's right there. That
guy, yeah.
Desperately wants him to be played by Chris Pine in the movie. Jack is he's basically a street rat pickpocket with this girl Luna, who living in this like ramshackle city place, which is basically like a favela. Built underneath not underneath a bridge in terms of on the ground underneath the bridge. It's built on the supports of the bridge.
Yeah,
because the bridge crosses a bottomless magic pit.
Yeah, and
so like they live in sort of the slums here. And meanwhile, the main thing that's happening in the world is there is a war between two magical factions. That's called the Ever War, that has been happening for as long as anyone can remember and is never going to end, basically. Two magical warring factions at each other's throat. And there's like the army, the kind of the militaristic group, the Immortals, who are sort of the leaders of the factions that are sort of fighting on roughly the side of the people who live here, but also not really, because they don't care about them because they're poor peasants.
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of a Ready Player One vibe to it.
It's got kind of that like a slum like stacked up mobile home
Caste
thing a
system.
little bit. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like let's not insult anything by comparing it to Ready Player One.
I know how much you love Ready Player One.
But it's and then like they're up against these what are framed as the bad guys, and I can't remember the guy's name. Begins with an S, but he's basically Sauron. Mm-hmm. You saw him at the beginning of the B-roll. He's in the fancy silver armor and he's like doing all the magic shit. He's like the guy in the end they attack this town at the end of the first chapter and kill her and all your pickpocket family. They blow the building up and he freaks out, and he can use magic, and then when it blows the building up he freaks out and like unleashes this torrent of uncontrolled magic and kills all the soldiers. And then the leader of the general of the good guy, quote unquote, Immortals army shows up and is like, well, you're rather special, aren't you, because you can do that. So she takes you, and it jumps 5 years later that she's trained you to be an immortal, and then you go through your selection process and you pass the trial and become a full-fledged immortal. And the main meat of the game is you are now an Immortal of Aveum, and you are part of this ever war against this evil guy. And then on you're
still going after the guy they introduced at the
beginning. You are,
right?
but after your first mission, you do run into him, and he takes his helmet off, and he's a kindly old man.
Oh,
who used to be an immortal.
Oh,
and there's a lot more happening than you think.
See,
no one is. Here's the thing.
This game sounds better than people are giving it credit for.
Well, here's the thing. So this is the tension in Immortals of Aveum. This game, there's a lot of thought put into the world and the story and the characters and the lore. Like, there's a whole encyclopedia of lore you can read through if you want to. There's all this stuff to find. Like, the people who made the game spent a lot of time building this world and building these people and building this like history to this world. It all feels like a real place in a very believable, tangible way. It's just trapped in a shooter. You know, it's trapped in a pretty standard FPS. I will say there's a bunch of things. We go back to like the hub place where the Immortals hang out. You go around, talk to everybody, and get kind of information about things, and you get dialogue choices and stuff. My main thing I keep thinking when I play this game is, if Anthem had been framed more like this, it would have been much more successful.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, so you've got all this stuff that's like, oh, this is an interesting situation. The story's actually a little interesting. It is sort of, there's been some accusations of Marvel-style stuff in the dialogue, and that's true. Everybody is a little quippy, but some of it's very funny. Like some of it, like, look, like I know you're used to everybody speaking like a Tolkien character, but real people like mouth off in tough situations and make jokes and things like you know, like go back to the first written thing we have of any kind of commerce is someone writing a complaint letter about bad copper and like being all snide in it in Sanskrit. It's like people have been people forever. Like it doesn't matter how dramatic the situation was, we think historically. So like when the big bad guy says like, you know, you can't beat me, come meet me at this place, and the main character in the back of the meeting goes, trap. Yeah, like it's like, I mean, that's funny. It's pretty well delivered. The performances are good. Like I think it's well good enough, and there's elements that are, you know, it all hangs together pretty well. The problem is when what you're actually playing is a very uninspired shooter.
Really? So it's just like a generic first-person shooter.
Pretty much. So you've got three kinds of magic. The reason Jack is special is he's a, I can't remember the fucking capitalized proper nouns for anything. He can. There's three kinds of magic: red, blue, and green. He can use all three. Most people can only use one color. Okay. So he's special because he's special for two reasons. He's a triumvirate or a tri something. Yeah. Because he can use all three, and he's what's called an unforeseen. Because usually people who can use magic rise from noble classes or houses, and he was just some random person who was able to use magic to the degree that he could become an immortal, and that does create some prejudice towards him from the other, because most immortals are nobility, and some of them are very nasty to him, and some of them are not. Some of them are, it's a very big wide variety of things, and there's a bunch of weird shit in there. There's a character who can see the future, and the character isn't non-binary. The character is literally multiple people. The character is like a legion of an entire tribe in one body, but they can see everything that's ever happened and ever will happen, but they don't always know where they are, what time they're in. Gotcha. And so they'll answer your questions from the end of the conversation, the beginning of the conversation. It's very confusing to talk to them, and they don't actually... At one point you ask, like, who's going to win the Everwar? And they're like, I can't see that because time doesn't care anymore. No. It's gone on so long that even time isn't paying attention to it anymore. That's funny. And I'm like, that's a really interesting idea. There's some cool stuff in there. But the gist of it is you get these three colors, and blue... So you basically
only have three guns is what you're saying.
Blue is sort of like directed general magic. Red is big, damaging, big magic, and green...
It's like your rocket launcher.
And green is life and death and sort of more harming. It's healing,
what about
healing
the
and
fire
harming.
Rates? Do those change for each color?
Yeah, well, so if I'm trying to get the lore out on this first. But the blue is a rifle, the red is a shotgun, and the green is a machine gun.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
That's it.
Okay, literally, that's all you get for the whole game.
And you can like upgrade them. There's tons of treasure and gems and magic crystals and stuff you pick up, and you can upgrade all the different ones. So like there are red magic gauntlets that are shotguns, but there's also ones that are rocket launchers equivalent. So they only hold one, and they shoot out a big thing that blows up. And you can upgrade all those. You can put those into things and upgrading that. You can So I've got my blue one is the one I like best because I like precision rifles when I'm playing things like this. And so I just go around headshotting everybody. You have a shield you can put up, like a magic shield, and if it breaks, if it breaks, they can hit you. But generally, like, I have not been hit in a firefight in this game in like 3 hours. Like, jeez. Unless I'm fighting a boss, it's just you walk into an area, like 5 guys drop in, you put the shield up, you're done.
They're all
That's
dead.
It.
Yeah.
And like the hardest part is remembering where they all died, so you can go pick up the gold they dropped. Like really, and then you fight bosses. Some of the bosses are a little more involved, but even like the hand of what's his name, who's set up as sort of like a Nazgul kind of thing. You're like, oh, you died in like 5 seconds.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if I've upgraded my character. You know me, I'm pretty diligent about poking in various places, and I've picked up all kinds of stuff. So every time I run into a forge, I upgrade my blue thing as much as I can, and I'm taking guys down like that. I mean, and you can kind of tell where you are in power wise, because you're supposed to use the same color of magic against like shields of the same color, and like people will put up, like bosses will put up a blue shield, and I'm like boom boom down
with like your green magic.
No, with my
your blue magic.
Green magic isn't as strong because it's not as accurate, so I don't use it as much. The only time I have to switch to that is like, really, if I'm solving a puzzle that involves the
if you use the matching color, it makes the game way too easy.
It does, but even if you don't, my upgraded blue can cut through anything. I don't switch off blue very often.
Yeah,
it's good enough. Yeah, really. And like
so you're basically using the same gun through the whole game.
Pretty much. And like, very rarely do you need to change up tactics. And clearly the game thinks I'm going to get hit more often than I do, because you can only carry 3 health. You have health crystals that you can heal with, and magic restoration. So you've got your normal attacks, and then you have power attacks. You have like a meter down in the right-hand corner with like you start with 3 slots, and you can use one of the special attacks. And they're supposed to be for like, if you run into a big guy, you do like the ground wave assault, and it'll stun him long enough for you to hit him in the head 4 times and kill him before they can do anything to you. They're big, like stronger attacks basically. And that does not recharge. You have to recharge it with an item, a magic cube thing. This game is constantly dropping health crystals and magic cubes, and I do not need any of them.
So it's like impossible to die, is what you're saying.
It's very hard. I'm playing on normal. I'm sure hard is harder, but like the default difficulty to me is really easy, and I'm not that great at shooters.
Yeah. So would you recommend that people play it on the harder setting if they do pick it up?
Maybe, but I don't know if that's just like everyone's just gonna become a bullet sponge, and that's more frustrating.
Yeah.
It's not like they're smarter or harder or more fun to fight. It's more like, well, it just takes longer to kill them, so they're more likely to kill you.
Yeah.
And then you've got this thing, which is the giant. You combine all the colors and fire.
It's your
out
specialism,
crazy
I guess.
shit. Yeah, and
let me guess, you tap both shoulder buttons at once.
No, you click both sticks.
Okay, it's one or the other.
And you
either tap both shoulder buttons or click both sticks.
And you have to find a specific kind of extra magic to fill that bar up. But I use it so rarely. There's just after firefights, there's just like 14 of those crystals laying around. I can't pick them up because that magic's full already.
Yeah.
And then you've got 3 skill trees for each color.
For each color?
And
3 for each color?
Well, no, you got 3, and
3
1
total.
for each color.
Okay.
And then like you've got extra skills you can get, and some of them require you to have. You need 2 blues to get this 1 red ability, and so you got to kind of keep them both moving. And some of those are very strong. There's a couple. There's like, and then like you have gear as well. So not in addition to the different types of the 3 magic bracelets you can do, you also have. You have actual bracers, which add stuff. You have rings. You have talismans, and you have extra abilities you pick up. So there's like an ability with a whip, where you can whip a guy and pull him towards you, and eventually you can whip things and pull yourself up on specific locations, sort of like Darksiders let you do.
It's close to an action RPG.
It is doing action RPG stuff. Like I said, if Anthem was more like this presentationally, it would have been received way better.
Interesting.
I think it would have done way better.
Huh.
It is a little surprising to me that there's all this effort put into this single player only shooter from EA. Like, I can see why they picked this up. Like, it definitely has
potential.
It's got potential. It's just, it doesn't, for me, the gameplay doesn't, even as someone who doesn't play a lot of shooters, like, I feel like I've seen everything this game has to throw at me in terms of gameplay, outside of the fact that I'm shooting blue magic at someone instead of a rifle.
Right.
You know? Like, but I think, like, if someone who plays shooters all the time, like you played it, you'd be like, I understand, I'm playing what I usually play with a different skin laid on top of it.
Yeah.
And I'm interested every time we get to the new cutscenes. Anyway, that's I'm forgetting her name. She played
she's in a lot of stuff.
The co-pilot in Firefly. Yeah. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. She's all over the place.
She's in everything. Yeah. Gina Torres. That's her name. Yeah. Gina Torres. She's very good. The guy who plays Jack is very good.
The facial animation looks great.
Facial animation is great.
He was just crying a minute ago. It looked very convincing.
No, all the presentational stuff is great. Like, they do a really good. It's just what you're playing is just really
rote.
Sounds like. Yeah. That's what I mean by less than some of its parts.
Yeah.
And there's a big map. You can teleport different places as you get new abilities. You can unlock. You can you see like, oh, the sludge over here. I can't do anything now. I have the ability to do the sludge, to clear the sludge out, so I can go back and.
There's a little bit of Metroidvania in there.
There's a little bit of Metroidvania too. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot happening here. It just doesn't quite gel.
Interesting.
And I don't quite know why, other than what you're actually playing is not all that engaging.
Yeah.
And I would rather watch a movie about this. I would rather watch
So you like the world, the characters, and all that?
I think that all works.
Just the actual playing.
And like the tone and sort of the way it works. I mean, if you saw and liked the Dungeons and Dragons movie earlier this year, Honor Among Thieves, the Chris Pine, I think you'll like this. I think you'll like the way this is approached. Like it's that same kind of thing. It's got a little snark to it. It's got a little attitude, but it also has scale and scope narratively that isn't really captured in the game play itself. Like it's always going to come down to walking through an open area and shooting 10 guys in the head. You know, like it doesn't have that verve to it.
Now this is one of the first Unreal Engine 5 games
using the full tool stuff.
Yeah, it's 5.1 actually.
Yeah.
How does it run on your PC?
Runs fine.
Does it?
Like
keeping in mind Matt's PC is a monster.
Yeah, there's a little bit of stuttering here and there. I will say this. This is when I first loaded the game up and it did its optimizing like load shader thing. It is the first time I've ever heard that PC make any noise.
The fan came on.
The fans burned. The fans were like, I was like, oh,
did they smell because they came on for the first time?
No, but I could hear it was loud.
It was working a little bit.
It would sound like a jet engine started to, and then it calmed down after the title screen and it didn't make any noise. It doesn't make any noise while it's playing the game. But when it loaded those shaders,
wow,
the fans went overdrive. The other thing that happens, and I don't know what this is, every time I start it switches my audio output to some internal thing that's not my speakers. And even if I switch it, it doesn't switch the audio back on in the game. I have to quit the game, switch the audio back to the proper speakers, and start the game again, and then I get sound out of it.
That's weird.
So like I played it last night, I quit it. If I go downstairs right now and start it up, there will be no sound, and I will have to quit the game, change the speaker setting again, and start the game again.
That is
every time
weird.
I do not know. I've never run into anything like that ever before.
It's a bug. It's got to be a
very
bug.
weird.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, it runs fine. There's some stuttering here and there. There's a little hitches once in a while, but for the most part, it runs very smooth.
How's it look on your PC?
Looks pretty good. I mean, it is running at I think it is running at 2K.
Okay.
In default with everything on. Everything's on ultra ray tracing, the whole deal. I've got it running about 500. I think 500, the halfway setting for the cache, the shader cache, so it doesn't have to constantly load things in. It looks pretty good. It doesn't seem to have HDR, which kind of impacts the color depth a little
weird.
bit. At least it didn't. I don't think it did when I started. Maybe they added it later. I don't think there's been a big update like that.
I mean, I'll be honest. Just looking at our B-roll or whatever, it's like Unreal Engine 5 versus Unreal Engine 4, like, I don't know. I don't see a gigantic difference in games that are built for one or the other so far. I mean, hopefully that changes over time, but
like you can tell a little bit in like the characters and the character models and all the little things on them, and like there's some there's a lot of impressive particle stuff with the magic effects in this. It just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot happening. Like if I got my shield up, I'm firing stuff through the shield. I got a construct over here throwing stuff over here. Like 14 guys are casting spells at me this way. There's waterfalls and there's a ley line going through. I mean, there's a lot happening visually. It's just you numb to it after a while. You know, like
that happens. Sometimes you have to show a little restraint in game development, I think.
You gotta breathe. You can't do Michael Bay all the time. Michael Bay's problem is that everything happens up here and it never slows down, so it just feels like everything's the same after a while.
That's why I fell asleep in the third Matrix movie.
Yeah.
Because they just put it to 11 and they left it there, and I fell asleep with AK-47s.
You gotta breathe once in a while.
Exactly. Yeah. So it sounds like there's some promise here.
There is something here.
Yeah.
I don't think they quite got there, but there's something like I would love to see a second one because I bet the second one would hit in the way they want it to. It feels like they got there, but they didn't quite accomplish what they were after.
Yeah.
And I think with a little more, I think maybe you could either lean harder into the shooter aspect, or you could lean harder into the RPG.
Yeah.
And
it might be smarter to go more towards
personally,
the RPG
I would lean more.
side.
I would do more of a Mass Effect thing with this. I would lean into the RPG thing and have the shooting just sort of be the conduit by which you get to the next.
I think that's the right approach. But do you think EA will publish another one? I don't.
I would be surprised.
I mean, there's been very little hype about this game out on the wilds of the internet, and I can just tell you, looking at the data on Sifted, as far as like how much people watch the media or read the articles on the site,
No one is paying attention.
People
to this
don't
game
care
at all. No.
Yeah.
It's also a very bad title.
Yeah.
Immortals of Aveum is a bad title.
Yeah, it's so ambiguous.
I don't know what else you'd call it, but like...
Yeah. But I hear you. It doesn't ring a bell or ring anything, really. It's just generic fantasy title.
It's too vowel-y. There's not enough Immortals of Aveum.
You're right.
Like there's no hit. There's no...
Well, Avium, that word is
Avium.
Almost all vowels.
It's like it's just like ooh, Aveum. It's like It's like you need something with a little, like something that makes you need a K in there somewhere. You need something
hard.
You need Mass Effect. Effects. You need Dark Soul.
Yeah.
You gotta have something in there.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening,
Starfield. There's
the
F and the D give you the punch.
Like Satterfield.
Immortals of Aveum. It's like,
it's
like a tired man on a porch in Alabama. Immortals of Aveum.
For those of you who are listening to this episode and are not watching it, Immortals of Aveum is only available for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series because it is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and typically those are always going to be PC and next gen only. So I really doubt we'll ever see a sequel to this game. EA isn't the type to nurture IP along.
No, although I'm not clear. So this is something that they didn't do themselves. They kind of publishing it.
Basically, yeah.
I could see someone picking this
someone
up.
else picking it up?
Someone else picking it up at some point.
Yeah, one of the B tier.
Yeah, like a THQ
guys.
Nordic or something like that. Like I could see that happen.
505 games.
Hell, I could see Ubisoft picking it up just for the sake of having some kind of variety in their library.
Or just for the sake of having a game
in their library, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. I don't know. By the time I give this a spin and I come back, it'll be too late, So I doubt I'm going to ever even end up playing this, honestly. Because I get back.
Well, when it's like just $20 around Christmas,
maybe
you might want to give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
like I said, reading the reviews, it's really hard to pinpoint what is bad about the game.
It's not. There's nothing really bad about it. It just should be better than it is.
Yeah.
And most of that comes from how uninspired the gameplay is. Even though I think they're trying to make it something special, it just doesn't get there. It doesn't feel any. It doesn't feel. Firing the green magic doesn't really feel any different than firing a machine gun.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't. It doesn't feel like magic. It feels like reskinned guns.
Gun. Yeah. Okay.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. Some people may like to hear that, though.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you don't want anything, if you just want a different look to a shooter, like, it'll get you there.
Yeah.
And there are very satisfying things. There is that satisfaction of, like, the extra reticle pop and the ping when you headshot someone, like in Battlefield.
So the headshots feel good.
They do. It's like, it's hard to get them on sometimes, but like, when it happens, and like you get a little vibrate through the controller, you get a little ping, and you get a little like visual thing. They're trying to hit that dopamine button as much as they can with that. It's just sort of like, it's just so repetitive after a while. And you're like, because early on you're like, oh, I can do this. I got this. Oh, I got another gauntlet. Oh, I can do shotgun stuff now. Yeah, that. And then like after a while you're like, oh, this is.
And then it never goes anywhere after that.
Yeah. And it's very hard to tell where you are. Some of the environments early on are all kind of the same. Eventually that branches out more and it becomes less like that.
I am surprised how much you've played it, though. I really thought you'd play like an hour or two and be like, I'm good.
It's very easy to play. That's the thing. I mean, like, part of me was like, I was interested enough in the story. I'm like, does this ever get any better in terms of what I'm playing? And like, it just hasn't.
It doesn't.
Like, 6 or 7 hours in, I just feel like I'm still doing the same thing.
Again, the competition is so stiff right now. Like, from this point until the end of the year, like...
I mean, as soon as Assassins, as soon as AC is tripping me up, as soon as Armored Core came out, I basically forgot about this game. Yeah. I loaded it up last night purely to remember it, basically, so I could talk about it today. And then, come Thursday, it may as well not exist. Yeah. So... I hope.
Yeah.
If you find me playing Immortals of Aveum,
if I see you on my friends list playing Immortals
of Aveum,
oh my god!
The show when we come back is going to be amazing.
The best episode at GameFace.
The whole room's just going to be on fire.
So anyway, there you go. That's Immortals of Aveum. Again, it's only PC, PS5, and Xbox Series.
I know it's not feasible just because of the tools in play. And all. It would have been great if they could have gotten this out last year. Because it would have had no competition.
There were so many open windows for it.
Yeah.
Even earlier in the year, we were playing stuff like
2 months ago
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like summer hit. Yeah. Could have been like the game people were playing in the summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just up against a sandwich between Baldur's Gate, Armored Core, and Starfield. Like,
I'm surprised you played it at all, Matt.
Believe me, if we'd gotten 2 Starfield codes,
it wouldn't happen.
That would have been a very different.
It's a blessing
situation.
in disguise, Sifters, that Matt didn't get a code because now we got to get his report on this.
I'd be zooming in from downstairs.
Yeah. It's also good to have you talk about a shooter for once instead of me. Like, I'm typically always the voice on first-person action games on the show, and like it's good to hear a different perspective on things.
And of course, I think it would be better if it was third person.
Yeah.
Partly because the character looks cool. Like, I would like to see what's
magic happening.
Yeah. Like, it feels like such a limited way of showing that, and it's just like, and he's doing all the hand stuff, but it's like, okay. I mean, you even reload with X. Like, it's the same thing.
It's a shooter.
It's the same game.
Do you switch the magic with Y?
Why? Of course you do.
There you go.
Then B is dodge. You have a little blink spell, and then A, you jump, and then you can double jump, and then you can hover.
Oh.
So there's some platforming, there's some puzzle solving, there's a couple puzzles I haven't figured out yet, but they're sort of a thing like that Metroid thing where you're like, am I not understanding this, or do I need an ability I
just don't have what I need to
it's
solve
like, I thought we solved this problem in Banjo-Tooie, guys. You know,
Yeah.
At least tell me. Like, every once in a while, Jack will be like, oh, I don't think I can do anything with this right now. I'm like, okay, can you tell me that more often? Because at one point I was trying to solve a puzzle forever and I couldn't figure it out, and like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I got a new ability. I'm like, oh, that will solve that puzzle. I wasted fucking half an hour trying to do that.
That sucks. Been there many times. So anyway, there you go. That's Immortals of Aveum. Again, PC, PS5, Xbox Series. We struggle to recommend it with all the other big games coming out.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been nice to... It'd be nice to be in the universe where this game came out and hit it out of the park.
Yeah. Speaking of shame, that was a great segue into our next topic, which is Gamescom 2023. I wouldn't say it was shameful, but it certainly wasn't anything to write home about. Here we are, the third topic of GameFace, and we're just now going to recap Gamescom for you. Now, last week's episode happened right after Keighley's big opening night live thing, which... Yeah, exactly. It was supposed to be.
Well, we're talking Gamescom here, so let's scale it down a bit.
So as it turns out, Keighley's thing was pretty much a bust too. I mean, there was really no big reveals in that, hardly at all, other than a couple release dates.
The Mortal Kombat stuff was nice. Like, there's some stuff that came out of the game, but it was all known stuff. Like, like some of the cutscenes they showed from Mortal Kombat are really funny. Like the bit where Sub-Zero attacks the guy at the bar, and like the other guy just continues drinking and breaks a piece of ice off and puts it in the drink. Like, that's very good. Like, that's great. Like, I love all that stuff. But it's like, that's a known quantity. The game
that was like the 20th trailer for Mortal Kombat.
And like, let's be honest, like, that tone and that aspect of Mortal Kombat's been in play for 3 games now. Yeah. The 4th now. You know, so it's not like there's any surprise there. It's just like, it's fun to see, but that's not a reason to show up in Cologne, is it?
Yeah.
You know?
Keighley basically just showed new trailers for his big reveal was Modern Warfare 3. Having that campaign,
because there was no E3 to do that before.
That was his big win.
Normally that would be the Sony press conference.
Yep. But the rest of it was a new trailer for Mortal Kombat 1, a new trailer for Assassin's Creed Mirage, a new trailer for Alan Wake 2. And
I mean, the Night Dive stuff. Yeah. Like, you even mentioned that with before, where like they had at least 2 more remasters in the chamber, and there they were.
Sure enough, there they were. Yeah. And those were kind of the big things from Keighley's event. Like, we're not going to. I
mean, the fact that the Dark Forces remaster's coming is definitely the biggest news at Gamescom for me.
I mean, but still think about that.
Oh yeah,
if that's the biggest news for you coming out of Gamescom.
Look, man, I can't remember the last Gamescom thing that really blew me away. So it's like, hey.
Well, we got the release date for Tekken 8. That's not coming this year. It's coming January 26th of next year.
Called it.
Yep. Yeah, you did call. Actually, I think at first you were saying it was going to come out.
I thought it would be, but then I didn't enough that I didn't draft it. Yeah. That's how you know I didn't think it was coming this year anymore.
And then we got the release date for Sonic Superstars, which is the next 2D Sonic. That is October 17th. I don't know why anybody would schedule anything for October at this point.
Well, you can do that because Sonic has a built-in audience that's different from everything
You're right.
else.
It probably doesn't matter when you release a Sonic game. Yeah, that's one game that's probably going to be bulletproof for October.
No, you can't. Those people get something out of Sonic they don't get out of anything else, which we should probably not dig into any further.
Yeah, exactly. And that was pretty much it for Keighley's event, even though it lasted 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a 2-hour show for like 5 trailers that you wanted to watch, 5 or 6 trailers. I would give Keighley's event a C- for opening night live.
I didn't even watch enough of it to grade it.
Okay.
Like,
well, I would give it a C-.
I believe you.
Yeah. But again, I wouldn't blame him for that. It's just tough. Gamescom is difficult. The publishers are used to the cadence of putting out something big around June time and then not having to do anything until like the Game Awards in December.
They're busy making this stuff that's supposed to hit the shelves in about a month.
Yeah, so trying to just drop down there in August in the middle of it, it's just tough.
Gamescom might want to consider moving to June.
Yeah, I mean, it's open now. Let's be honest. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Just take over E3. Make it the new E3.
Take that slot.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe it won't work, maybe it will, but you might as well try.
It can't be any worse than August, man.
Right.
Also, who wants to go anywhere in the middle of August when it's hot as balls out? Like, So anyway, that was Keighley's event, opening night live. And then we got to the show proper. And one of the very biggest stories happened, I think actually the day before the show even kicked off, like the same day as Keighley's thing, was we finally got more information on PlayStation Q. And we got the final name of PlayStation Q. It is called PlayStation Portal. It is coming out before the end of the year. They don't have a hard release date for it, but it's coming out before the end of the year for $200. It has an 8-inch LCD 1080p screen that runs at 60 hertz, so 60 frames per second. And then initially there was confusion around it because if you went to Sony's own official page for the Q handheld, there were lines in the description that made people believe that it would only work on the same network as whatever your PlayStation 5 was connected to. And so at first, like, all the stories reporting on this were saying, like, you can't even take this thing on the road. You could only use it at home. Now, as it turns out, that was not true. And PlayStation even went back, and if you go to the bottom of that page now where it has, like, FAQ, they've added a question there about it, and they do confirm that, no, you can, in fact, take this on the road with you and use it on Wi-Fi or whatever to play games. But they say, we recommend it mostly for use at home because once you take it out on the road, your experience is probably going to suffer.
Yeah, it was basically like, you can do it, but good luck.
Yeah. But so you can, though. So you can take it to like a hotel and hook it up to the hotel Wi-Fi. And as long as you're...
Until the hotel's like, what are you doing using all our bandwidth for?
Yeah. Because they did recommend, like, the bandwidth recommended for it is high. Yeah. Like when you're on the road. So it's not going to be ideal for that, but basically what it does is it just streams the game from your PS5 to that little screen on the controller. How do you feel about the price, Matt, for $200? At first, when I heard it, I thought it was like insane, but now
is insane.
It is insane. You think?
It's a screen.
Yeah, a 1080p screen. Yeah, I mean, you're basically paying for a small 1080p screen and a DualSense controller. Yeah, DualSense controllers, $80. You can get them cheaper.
Where am I playing this? What hotel am I staying at with Wi-Fi that robust? What plane
Why would I play
am
it at home?
No,
this seems like one of those things, Matt, that was made for Japan.
If you have to share a TV, I guess.
Right. It feels to me like this is one of those things in the games industry that doesn't make sense to us, but it does make sense for Japan. Like the GameCube. Everyone's like, why is it so little? Why is it a cube? Well, because people in Japan live in shoeboxes and they don't have a lot of space. We couldn't understand that. People in Japan do.
And but like you can already do remote streaming of the PS5 on like almost any screen you can think of.
On a Vita.
And use a controller. If you just bring the controller and plug it into a Vita or plug it into a laptop or whatever. You know, my MacBook can do that.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay an extra $200 for it.
Yeah.
What's the point? I don't get it.
They're basically doubling their money. So my guess is it costs $100 to manufacture this thing, and they're charging double for it. It may not even cost $100 to manufacture.
I saw a Twitter poll on this about are you interested? Are you gonna buy it? It was a few thousand people responded. 94% no. This thing is dead in the water.
It is DOA. Yeah.
There's no chance. Like I don't know what the hell the use case for this thing's supposed to be.
I don't either.
For $200.
Again, I think Japan, where people don't have two TVs, they have one usually.
The most exciting thing in that video is the fucking earbuds.
Yeah.
Like those look pretty good.
Badass. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell, even the headset looked okay.
Yeah. All the sound equipment that Sony's released so far officially for PS5 has been awesome. Yeah. They're doing a good job with it.
Way more interested in that
than this. They just bought a headphone manufacturer too, I believe, last week. So, and I think they said they're going to allow them to operate as usual. They're not going to take over the company either. So, yeah. I mean, what price makes more sense for you?
For me, $0.
Right.
Sewer Rat may taste
What price would make you consider it?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Sewer Rat may taste like pumpkin pie, but I'll never know because I'll never eat the filthy motherfucker, as Samuel L. Jackson once said.
Fair enough.
I have absolutely no use for that.
Yeah.
It would not be worth the space it takes up in my house.
Yeah, I think in the U.S. it's dead in the water. But anyway, it's called PlayStation Portal. Again, $200 coming before the end of the year. You probably kind of want to announce the release date there.
Yeah, it is weird they didn't have a release date for that. But
anyway,
like,
or maybe they know just as well as we do that this is just dead in the water. And
I don't know.
I don't know.
Shadow drop it.
Yeah.
Be like, ha!
They'll do some... Maybe they'll just shadow drop it during the Game Awards at the beginning of December or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't,
that'd be their only chance of selling some of them.
They probably just want to do it in one of their own like state of plays or
Yeah.
something. Save it for themselves.
Yeah. But anyway, other than that, PlayStation Portal, PlayStation was completely MIA at Gamescom. So it is an equal opportunity lever. It left E3. It really has no presence at Gamescom anymore. I don't know. Like now we're getting the reports that it's falling behind the PS4. Like I don't know. It might want to start rethinking some of the stuff that it's been doing the last couple of years.
It's not having a very good year in terms of release schedule. Is the
That's
problem?
true. I mean, it's had an abysmal release schedule.
Like everybody's just waiting for Spider-Man at this point.
Yeah,
that was the other weird thing today because all the furor over Starfield. There were like Sony people screaming about how like, oh, Spider-Man 2's not getting any marketing. Because Assassin's Creed got the Game Informer cover.
August.
It comes out in October. Like everything. I don't know how many times I need to explain this. Marketing blitzes start 4 weeks before release for everything: movies, TV shows, games, music, whatever you have. 4 weeks before release, 3 weeks sometimes, because you want people to be excited or aware of it. And then be able to buy it.
Yeah.
You do not want to tell someone about shit like this 2-3 months early, and then like, oh yeah, when can October? I'm gonna forget about it, and never think about it again. Like that's how you get that's the problem. You don't put shit on buses or billboards or NFL games until you're like weeks away from being able to buy it.
Think about buying it. Yeah.
That's it.
I agree.
Spider-Man 2 will get its fucking marketing push. I promise.
Yep, I agree. So anyway, PlayStation was pretty much, other than PlayStation Portal, MIA at Gamescom. So, but maybe it just didn't really have anything to show that it felt confident in. I don't know. It's a little weird.
There's a little bit of Spider-Man stuff.
But nothing major.
Nothing special. Yeah. Nothing. They're saving all that for themselves. Like they broke away from all these shows because they want to do their own state of play stuff, and they know that they can drive traffic to those things just fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. We'll see them in September.
Yeah. One of the smaller stories kicking around Gamescom, and it only came out from interviews with CD Projekt Red, is that a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 was confirmed at Gamescom.
Bold. When
they were doing interviews about this last expansion that they're doing for the game, they're like,
it does look quite good.
It does, yeah. It looks really good. They're like, this is it. As soon as this is done and shipped, we are moving on to Cyberpunk 2077 2.
2078.
I guess that's what it would be. I don't know what you're going to name the sequel.
I mean, you could jump ahead, however.
Right, however many years.
You see, like recently, it was like earlier, it was a week or two ago, or maybe it was this week. I don't know. It was the day that Johnny Silverhand, quote unquote, dies.
Oh, right, yeah. We got to that day.
2023, yeah.
It's crazy. We're starting to see a lot of sci-fi days come and go now, where movies from the 80s and 70s.
4 years past Blade Runner.
It's pretty funny what the creators and the creatives thought our future would be like and what it actually is. Mm-hmm. More advanced in some ways and less advanced in other ways.
He made Back to the Future today. He'd go back to 1993.
Right. That's crazy, dude. Mm-hmm. That's insane. So anyway, a sequel to Cyberpunk is coming. Are you surprised by that at all?
I mean, it's bold. Like, there was certainly after how that thing launched, you'd think they'd never mention it. They'd never just get it done and never mention it. I'm surprised they made DLC for the fucking thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a solid IP. It's not really something you want to abandon.
I look at how much money they made on it, and it's really a no-brainer.
Yeah, it did sell fine.
It's a no-brainer.
Certainly.
And ultimately, they did fix it up. Although I do think there's a lot of people who bought those last-gen versions who feel burned by the game still.
Yeah. Well, also to me, that says how confident they are in this DLC.
Yeah.
And how confident they are in the revamp of how the systems all work. I feel like they think that people are going to embrace this in a way that they didn't in the first one. I hope it works because
I do too.
What they're talking about,
I want it to be great.
Well, a lot of what they're talking about in terms of how they're revamping the skill systems and how the game plays is a lot more like how I wanted it to play in the first place.
I feel like this is what the game was supposed to be.
Yeah. Other than you will never, ever, ever convince me that the first act of the game wasn't supposed to be playing through that first year with Jackie.
Yeah, I agree.
That montage was supposed to be the first third of the game.
It still bothers me.
It should have been that.
I agree.
Because it's so obviously how you're supposed to learn about the city and the world.
Yeah.
and come into like that situation, and why you're supposed to build up affection for Jackie before that big job. Like that's what that big job thing. They're all talking. It's like, oh, this is it.
It happened
this
so
is the big
quickly.
deal. It's like this would have actual impact on me if I'd been doing a bunch of menial shit.
Right.
And like, for,
now here's the big job.
Right.
Instead, it's your first job, basically.
Yeah, it literally is the first job.
Yeah, it's poor planning. But I think you're right. I think they had to do some chopping, and they just couldn't find a good place to chop it. So, so anyway, sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 is coming. Next up, a Fallout TV series was teased for the first time here. I mean, we have some stories on Sifted about it, but not many details. Apparently there was a teaser shown behind closed doors for the first time for the show. Todd Howard talked about it a little bit.
I saw it.
Oh, you did see the teaser? He
looks like, I'll say this for it. If you just showed it to me with no context, I would know it's Fallout.
Oh, good.
So
that's positive. He said that he's been working on it, which is encouraging. It's kind of like Miyamoto working on the Mario movie. You're like, that makes me feel a little better.
This seems to be sort of in the lines of how Last of Us was done.
Yeah.
I don't think Todd's writing episodes.
No, I don't either.
But but it's no, he's involved, and like again, that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago with a video game adaptation.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. I think we should probably start getting more information on that in early part of 2024. I think it's supposed to launch next year.
Yeah, it's further along than you think.
Yeah, which is awesome. It's good when you see stuff for the first time and you're like, oh, I had forgotten about that, and it looks way better than I thought it was
It does take place in L.A., which is because we haven't been to L.A. in Fallout since the early games in the 90s.
Yeah.
Although I will say the little teaser image, clearly made with AI and very poor. Like there's people with 3 legs, and like one of the cars is both backwards and forwards at the same time, and like some of it's just like, oh, you really
you went that route, huh?
That's too bad.
That is too bad.
Early on, I'm like, oh, are they supposed to have 3 legs? Is nuclear mutant? They're like, no, it's just AI mistakes. It's just the same old shit.
Yep. So anyway, Fallout TV series is on the way, and it is a TV series and not a film, which is a big deal.
Yeah, Walton Goggins as a ghoul is like really good casting. Like that's solid. Oh, and Nox Eternity, they have to get Ron Perlman for the intro. They have to.
Yeah. They better.
He's done it since 1995. Like,
and it's not like he's doing anything else right now.
He's working.
Is he?
Oh, he's always in something.
I haven't seen him.
He's always in something. It's just not always something you're paying attention to.
Okay.
It's smaller stuff.
That's good to hear.
But no, he loves Fallout. He'll come back and do that if they call him, I'm sure.
Okay. And then the biggest thing, easily, at Gamescom, if you were actually at Gamescom, was that they showed the first 20 minutes of Starfield. Matt, are you shocked that hasn't leaked out? That somebody didn't shoot it on their cell phone and like leak it?
Well, the 40 minutes already got out there, so it doesn't really matter.
But that was somebody who had review code. Or no, they had the stolen version of the game.
Yeah, they stole the game and then they got arrested for trying to sell it.
Yeah.
Not exactly a master criminal, folks.
Yeah.
But
not sending their smartest.
No.
To say the least. But I'm surprised it hasn't leaked out somehow. Like on one of those like little like Ruli Web, like cheap YouTube knockoffs in Asia. Like that's usually where this stuff appears. Because the Western publishers can't figure out who to contact to get the stuff taken down.
I imagine that when they showed it, they were just very strict about camera stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, that happens all the time, and people still slide it in, just have it in their pocket.
You'd be surprised, though.
People are thirsty for stuff on this game.
They might have done the thing where they put everybody's cell phones in a bag, like, with some of those things.
It's possible.
There's not much you can do about it when that happens.
It is kind of silly, though, that they would show...
Next Level says that it did leak.
Oh, it did leak. Oh, it's out there somewhere. Next Level says it's out there somewhere. Okay, I didn't see it. And I didn't see any stories people reporting.
I'm not looking for it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, I see...
Not that I care about the first 20 minutes of it. It's like, oh no, you've spoiled 20 minutes of the 40-hour story. It's like...
Well, the one thing about Bethesda's RPGs is they do tend to start in unique ways.
Sure, but at the same time, I don't particularly care if I know that I wake up in a minecart in the beginning of Skyrim either, Mm-hmm. I mean, the dragon attack is cool, but it's like... I don't remember a time I didn't know that.
Yeah. But anyway, that was definitely, if you were there, that was the one thing that everybody, it seemed like, went to see, was the first 20 minutes of Starfield. And then let's start talking about some of the things that were at the show that did manage to catch my eye. There wasn't a lot.
That's also so weird to me, because like the idea, if I was at Gamescom, I would never wait in line to see the first 20 minutes of a game I was going to play in 2 weeks.
In some cases, like a few days.
If you're getting a code, it's like...
Or if you pre-ordered it and you can start playing it up, because the 31st you can start playing it if you spent the extra $35, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of those people will be playing it in a couple days. So to your point, you're right. Yeah. But if it's the biggest game there, you're going to wait in line.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there might not have been much else to do.
Yeah.
So
Because we're going to go through it here, and Matt is right. There wasn't a whole lot else to do. One of the biggest games to me at the show, for reasons beyond just the game itself, Stalker 2. So we did get some bad news, and you got some bad news, Matt, because you had this on your fantasy team. It has been delayed.
I've been saying this thing was going to be delayed for months.
Yeah. And it was delayed into 2024.
As long as Space Marine 2 makes it this year, I'm fine.
You'll have a full roster?
Yeah.
Okay.
The both alternates will have to come in, but
yeah.
As long
your
as
alternates are good. So.
The alternates are good, but as long as Space Marine 2 makes it this year,
and we'll get to that,
which it sounds like it will.
Yeah. Stalker 2. All I gotta say is when these dudes walked into Gamescom, people should have given them a standing ovation. If they walked on a stage anywhere, they should have got a standing ovation. Anytime you saw them, you should have applauded them for what they've been going through to make this video game. This studio is from Ukraine. They're in the middle of being invaded by a butcher, and somehow they have managed to keep their eye on the ball and almost finish this damn game. It is amazing to think about what this team has done. Now, it's a delay. It's only to Q1. It's incredible what they've done. Like, I can't give this team enough accolades. Now, some people got to play this at Gamescom as well, and some of those reports are saying that it is brutally difficult. Like,
Stalker.
We've heard this before, the Dark Souls of whatever, but that's what they're calling this, the Dark Souls of first-person shooters.
Dark Souls is the Stalker of action RPGs.
Because Stalker was around before Dark Souls.
Let's be clear.
No, you're right. It is notoriously difficult, but it sounds like this one kicks it up a notch. Like, people were taken aback by it. So get ready.
Yeah, Stalker's always been. I mean, go pick up Stalker for cheap on Steam and mod the shit out of it, according to some of the mod guides on how to make it like play different and work better and look better. Like, I don't think they really need to mess with the gameplay much to make it work today. You just need to up the tech and all that. But like, Stalker is a singular thing.
Zone beast.
I saw some people wondering, like, is it going to be like kind of dumbed down for a mass audience, or are they going to stick to their guns on what Stalker has always been? I'm like, I cannot imagine these people bowing down to anyone but themselves, given what they've had to do to get this thing made. I believe that this game will be exactly what they want it to be.
Yeah, and it should be. And honestly, if what they've been going through comes through in the game a little bit, all the better. I mean, that's art. That's how art works. The things that you're going through comes through in your art. So I'm excited to play this again.
And don't forget, it's based on a movie.
I know. Yeah,
an old movie called Stalker. I'll go look it up. It's roughly based, and again, the movie predates Chernobyl, the Chernobyl disaster.
Yeah,
but go check out the original movie. Like, it's remarkable. It's very good.
Yep. So anyway, it was delayed slightly.
Sure sets the tone.
Yeah. It was delayed slightly, but not that long, so we don't have to wait too long.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games where I'll believe it when it's in my hands.
Yeah,
basically. But
and look, I'll be completely forgiving if it gets delayed again.
Sure,
I would completely understand if it were delayed again. So that to me was one of the highlights. Just those guys being there. That's a big deal.
Well, it is easier to travel west.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It's not like they had to cross enemy lines to get to Germany.
And I don't even know if they're still working in Ukraine.
They are. I think they just moved west.
Okay.
They were in. I think they were in Kiev.
They were.
Kiev.
Yeah.
But I think they moved. Everybody moved to safer locations. Yeah.
Seems like every other.
But that's
4 or
still
5
a big
days,
deal. I mean,
you got to
uproot the whole development team
yeah.
and all the data and all the equipment and move it all somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like that's a big disruption.
It is. It's amazing that it's even coming in Q1 24. Next up, a game that Matt hinted at earlier, and I'm sure he was very excited to see this. There is a remaster coming of Star Wars Dark Forces. Now, Matt, I just have to fully admit here, as a huge Star Wars fan, Star Wars nerd, I have never played this game.
Good
and
Lord.
I'm a little bit ashamed of that.
You should be. What in the hell?
Yep, I never played it.
I mean, it's a Doom clone, obviously.
Yeah.
It came out of, like, what, 2 years after Doom, I think?
Yep.
I think it's not using the Doom engine. It is the first like kind of sprite-based shooter to let you actually tilt up and down. You can look up and down, whereas in Doom it just automatically shot.
It was on a plane.
Up or down. Yeah. I remember when my friend got this and we brought it back to home and put it on speed. I remember we installed it. It was 50 megabytes. We couldn't believe how big this game.
To buy a new hard drive.
No one could ever. It was half his hard drive. No one could ever make a game this big again. So yeah, and so this is the game where the Dark Troopers come from that are in the Mandalorian now.
Yeah,
that's
insane.
That's where they took those from. It's cool, and it started the Jedi Knight series. I would love to see them do a remaster of Jedi Knight after this, because Jedi Knight,
that I did play.
Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight is actually the one that's the hardest to play properly today.
Why is that?
It's just very archaic and doesn't run very well, and like FMV cutscenes are finicky with modern hardware.
Now they did redo all the cutscenes.
They did redo all of it. They look okay.
They look better.
They're fine. But like Jedi, and look, I have mods that I did a whole mod pass on Jedi Knight at some point with like fan mod, fan mod stuff. And you can get the first Jedi Knight looking as good as Jedi Outcast.
Really?
Like, it's actually very impressive.
Wow.
And you can get through it, and it works pretty much the same way. And it's because the dirty little secret of this series is Jedi Knight's the best one. And Jedi Outcast I hate. And Jedi Academy's pretty good. And Dark Forces is also pretty good.
Yeah.
Jedi Knight's the best one, and it's sort of been lost to history because it never really... It was on that cusp of 3D stuff where it's just ugly as hell.
There are a lot of casualties.
Like, it's
that era.
if you don't mod that thing, it looks awful.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even tell what you're looking at half the time. But like a remaster of that would in the vein of what Night Dive does would be great.
Yeah,
that would be a great move.
Yep. So anyway, that is coming next year, right? Dark Forces, I think, remaster?
I thought they said this year.
Is it this year?
They said this year, I think.
Okay.
I might be wrong, but I swear that said coming this year.
Okay. One of the cooler things that was shown at Gamescom and caught me completely off guard is Half-Life 2 RTX, which is basically Half-Life 2 remastered using all the latest visual trickery on NVIDIA's cards. How do you feel about this one? Half-Life 2 for a whole new generation.
That's cool. I'm probably not going to...
I won't play it again, probably.
I mean, I
might, though. I'm thinking about it.
I wouldn't be against it, but like, Half-Life 2 is a long game.
Yeah, it is long.
You want to talk
18, 20 hours?
Okay, so I reviewed Half-Life 2. I didn't finish that game because I had to go play it at Valve, and I only had one day there, and I got like 2/3 of the way through, and they're like, "Oh, that's pretty good. You got the gist."
Valve was okay with that. Yeah, I mean, they set it up.
As far as I only had one day to play it.
Wow.
I sat there and played the whole thing as long as I could, but I didn't get all the way through.
That's crazy. Half-Life 2 needs a remaster.
Yeah, I mean,
this game is prime for it. Absolutely. And I like what they've done with this so far. It looks good, man. I mean, just this shot right here, this shows you the change.
Yeah, there are games that all they need is this facelift. You don't need to mess with the actual.
Yeah, I mean, Half-Life 2 is good still, all on its own. It was the first modern era shooter, in my opinion.
It was the first thing to really bring the physics into the game.
I mean, the physics, just the way the cutscenes work, like the structure of the game. There's so much about it that it was literally just trailblazing at the time, and it still holds up all this time later. So this is for 2024, and so far it's only announced for PC. So we'll see if they can get it to work on the consoles. But my guess would be no.
It's just eternally hilarious to me that we're just never getting
a new Half-Life. Instead, they're doing this. It's like, what the hell, man? It's like a troll at this point, I think. I think that's just Valve just trolling its fans. I just don't think
you can never... Half-Life 3 can never be anything that lives up to Half-Life 3 anymore.
It's impossible.
Who would ever put themselves...
No matter what, you're going to fail.
Whoever put themselves on the line like that?
I wouldn't. Next up, we got a new look at Alan Wake 2, and lo and behold, we finally got some footage of Alan Wake. So far, all the promotion for this has shown the partner. Finally, we got some gameplay where you're actually playing as Alan Wake,
aka like John Wick era Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. How are you feeling about this?
Oh my god, I don't care.
Yeah,
at all.
Remedy's making a big deal about how it's their first survival horror game. That makes me a little nervous. They keep saying it's our first survival horror game. It's the first time we've tried this genre.
What was Alan Wake 1?
Exactly. I mean, I kind of thought...
I guess it was a little more action-driven than your usual survival horror at the time, but which I liked.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Also, how do you feel about this combo of like CG, live action, in-engine cinematics. There's like 3 different styles for cinematics in this game.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Control 2, if I'm honest. I don't really care about this.
I wasn't a big fan of the first Alan Wake. I'm more excited for this than I was for that, though, because they're changing it, and it's not like Alan Wake 1.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care much about horror to begin with. I like Control way more than Alan Wake. I like the premise, I like the idea, I like the character, I like all of it better. I like the gameplay, I like all that more.
This is also coming in October.
Yeah, it's there's going to be way more. I mean, I'm be playing Spider-Man 2 when this thing comes out, and I could not give less of a shit at that point.
I'm going to have to play this, aren't I?
You are. Because I'm going to be swinging around New York.
Yeah. I'm not that excited.
You want
for
us to go shine a flashlight at zombies? No, I do not.
I'm not that excited for this game, but I am more excited for it than I was for Alan Wake 1. And even after playing Alan Wake 1, I didn't enjoy it all that much. It was just kind of archaic.
Yeah, like nothing about this looks bad to me.
Yeah.
It's not for me. It's not in my interest zone.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on. This may be the game that everybody is talking about the most coming out of Gamescom, and that is Crimson Desert. We had got a trailer for this a while ago.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, they released this one, and here's the thing. There's all these games that come from Asia, and you see the trailers, and they look like better than anything Western developers are making.
And then they never
come out.
Yeah.
This one, I think, is going to be real.
It looks like it. And this game is sort of what, and I'm not being super draggy on it because I do love the game. This game looks like what Dragon's Dogma fans want you to think Dragon's Dogma is like.
That's hilarious. I can understand that completely. That's why it's funny. But this game, man, holy crap. It looks nuts.
Yeah, and I kept waiting for like the catch. You know, it's like,
right.
Oh, it's game as a service, or it's an MMO, or like
or it's an adventure game, and you don't actually do all this stuff.
But no, it seems to be an open world action RPG where you can just go run around and do all this crazy shit. I'm just like, I mean, this is.
I think it's also
if it's
MMO-ish.
real, this is like, oh, this is one of my games. This is the thing. This is what I like.
Yeah, this is your jam.
And it's like bright and colorful. And it looks nice. It's like, I'm into it.
I mean, it kind of looks like the next Baldur's Gate to me.
Well, except it probably be I mean, this is more my style because it's action-based and skill-based more than dice-based. But, I mean, it looks like maybe this is what Dragon Age should have become.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah. But again, we'll see if this ever comes out because there's a long run of games like this that you see them and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then they just never appear.
Like, where is it? Yeah.
Until they come back in a trailer like this. You're like, oh, that's right. There's that game from Asia that we all thought looked awesome. And now we haven't seen it for like 2 years.
Well, it's like that. It's that thing where like there's a I can't remember the name of the channel or the page.
Look at that meter for the horse there. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What was that?
I imagine that's the meter. It's like Zelda. You're like trying to calm the horse down.
Oh, it was taming the horse.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah.
It's like there's a page on Facebook that like I love
that
the horse
Did you
drifts.
see that?
Yeah,
it drifts.
Bye, horse. Oh, and now you can just turn into
something weird.
Yeah, rags.
I mean, this game looks nuts. Now it's it's got a little bit of Shadow of the Colossus in there. Like it does feel like it borrows a lot of stuff from other games, but that's okay when it looks that awesome.
A little bit of Zelda here and there. Now we got a bullet hell fight.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I mean, I hope this is real and this game comes out because you're right, man. It looks dope.
But there's like there's a page like on Facebook where like they'll do that, like they'll run like footage of like these, especially these Korean games where like they're like, oh, this game is gonna be this and this and this, and like in the in the comments it's like this trailer's from 2 years ago and no one has mentioned this game since then. Why are you running a preview of this today? And it's like I don't know. You're like, they just want engagement, but. No, this looks. If this is a real thing at some point, I am super in.
Me too.
Looks very cool.
Again, it's called Crimson Desert. Obviously, looking at it,
reasons I do not understand because I do not see a desert.
It's made by the Black Desert people.
Right, but there's no desert.
Yeah, I don't think there's a desert in Black Desert either.
And there's nothing particularly crimson.
I don't think it matters.
No?
I don't think Black Desert, there was a Black Desert in that either.
No, I mean, I think there was a desert.
Was there a desert?
It was called the Black Desert. But that wasn't really it was an area you could go. It'd be like calling World of Warcraft, like, the Barrens or something. You know, like,
I mean, I'll say one thing: Black Desert did have great combat for an MMO. For an MMO,
I guess. I found it tedious.
It was better than like World of Warcraft and stuff, though.
Yeah, I mean,
at least it's action based.
The bar is under the ground, though. I think the best combat I remember, I can never remember that goddamn name, but it was like an anime styled action MMO, almost like a fighter thing. It began with a V. I remember it almost looked like the characters almost looked like Dead or Alive style, like.
So the girls had boobs this big.
Yeah, but they also had that sort of like everybody had perfect hair and like kind of like, you know, you design them, they all look like anime characters. But like, it began with like not Valorant, that's that other game.
That's right. Shooter.
Not Vanguard. It was something like that. I can't remember. I played it for a while and I can't remember anything about it anymore. I just remember you started on like a shipwreck or something.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's Crimson Desert. My guess is it's going to be PC and next gen if it comes to consoles at all.
Yeah.
God knows when it's going to come out. So we'll see.
I mean, if you're making that, there's no why would you not?
Yeah.
You got to put it on consoles where the money
Make
is.
your money. Yeah. Next up, a game Matt mentioned earlier, Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. We got tons of game, no trailers for this at the show, but they were letting people play it. Mm-hmm. Like there's a full-on build of the game at Gamescom. It's gory as all get out.
I mean, that's Warhammer.
Yeah. I mean, it really does. Like, this may be the game that sells the Warhammer IP more than any other that I've seen. Like,
it's a good warm-up for the Henry Cavill series. That's for sure. Like, this is a good template for the Henry Cavill series, really. Yeah. Like, if the Henry Cavill series looks like this, I think they're halfway home.
Yeah. The only thing I'm worried about, like, so we have like a 5-minute chunk of gameplay. And then IGN published like a 20-minute chunk of gameplay that it had to take down. I think it screwed up and published like B-roll.
Like raw.
It was supposed to use for a preview, and it published the whole thing. So I got to watch like that whole 20-minute chunk, and it does seem a little repetitive.
I mean, that was the problem with the first one, too.
And even in 20 minutes, I was like, okay, can we see something else at this point? But it is like, it looks so good. It's so gory. It's like, it's shocking at first when you start watching it being played. And then you kind of get numb to the violence, and you start looking at what you're actually doing, and you're like, that's a whole lot of third-person shooting and hacking with the whatever. Like, and I'm not saying the whole game's going to be that way, just kind of something that I saw in the footage that just made me think for a minute.
It probably is.
It probably is, yeah.
That's what it is. What we're here for. We're just hacking Tyranids up here left and right.
But it looks great.
Yeah.
The visuals in this look awesome. And I would say this too, Matt. I would, with 95% certainty say this game's coming out this year.
Considering the completeness of the build they were showing, seems like it. But it's weird that we don't have a release date yet. It
is. You would think maybe they would announce that at Gamescom. But again, it is only August. We have lots of time. There's still, 4.5 months or whatever till the year's over. So they have time to do that. I'm pretty confident this game's going to come out this year. And it's looking pretty good, too. Like, visually, I think it's a real good-looking game. So it'll be interesting to see how it does review. I don't remember. What did the first Space Marine do, Metacritic-wise?
Like 7s and 8s.
Yeah.
It was
that seems right.
Solid. It was solid, but not
spectacular.
Super special. Yeah. It's about right.
Yeah. We'll see how this one turns out. Obviously, it's been, like 8 years or something since the last one?
I went to Vancouver and did preview interviews for X-Play for that. That was like 12, 13 years ago.
Okay. So, wow. That's a long layoff. So, you would assume this sequel is going to be a lot better. At least I would hope so. But anyway, that's Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. Next up, a Lord of the Rings game, which we probably don't get enough of those or get as many as we should, honestly.
I mean, after Gollum, do we need any more?
Yeah, we do. We need something to wipe that taste out of our mouths.
Yeah, that's called the old games. I don't need any more of this shit.
No.
Or Lord of the Rings Online, which is still going and pretty good.
I mean, isn't this like an MMO-ish game?
Is it?
I think it is, yeah.
I don't even know what this is.
It's Lord of the Rings Return to Moria.
Oh, right.
It's been in development for a while, too.
This looks like Minecraft, like Dwarf Fortress with a visual thing.
It's possible. Yeah. But
it looks more like a city builder than anything else.
Yeah, this game built a lot of buzz at Gamescom for whatever reason. Maybe people are just so desperate for decent Lord of the Rings entertainment at this point. Like I said...
Maybe just people love dwarves.
Yeah. That could be. But anyway, I think this is only announced for PC right now, or it's coming out for PC first and then coming out later for consoles. That's one to keep an eye on. And then there was another game from Asia that people thought maybe wasn't real, and it turns out it probably is, and that's Black Myth Wukong, We got media for this game that looked too good to be true, and then it kind of went away for a long time, but this game was also playable at Gamescom. In fact, the press got to play it. The press did huge hands-on previews of it. This game is legit. And this game looks amazing. Graphically, like technically, it looks awesome. I'm not a huge fan of the theme, honestly. I understand why, because I believe it's being developed by a Chinese developer.
Yeah, well, I mean, the legend of the Monkey King is one of the most popular stories in the history of humanity, so...
Yeah, I mean, I get why they've chosen this theme. Just me personally, it doesn't appeal to me very much.
No, the Sun Wukong thing is not super interesting to me either, but, like, partly because this is what Dragon Ball is based on, and I do not like Dragon Ball, but like, it just reminds me of that crap.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it looks nice. Like, there's elements to that could be interesting, because, like, there's stuff that, like, gets left out of a lot of interpretations of the story, and we'll see.
This is also PC and next gen. Obviously, I couldn't see a game like this running on PS4 or definitely not Xbox One.
No, I mean, we're 3 years into the generation. You shouldn't be expecting any old systems to run anything anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
You're lucky you got AC6.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this from a technical perspective. The rest of it, I'm not so sure. But I'm also pleasantly surprised that it's real. I really thought this was going to be another one of those games that they showed a trailer for, and then it just never materializes. So... again, that's Black Myth Wukong, and it is a legit game, believe it or not. Next up, Path of Exile 2. If you're finally burning out on Diablo 4, this is my guess is going to be your next fix. This game really impressed me. When did we see it last? Wasn't that long ago?
I don't remember.
It's like a couple months ago it was shown, and I was like, whoa, that game looks awesome. Well, they showed it again at Gamescom. It drew a lot of buzz. A lot of people were talking about it. I believe this one's coming to consoles already. I think it's already announced for consoles.
Probably.
But, you know, obviously...
No reason not to.
Diablo 4 has more than proven that these type of games work on consoles and work very well. In fact...
Isn't Path of Exile 1 already on console?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, Diablo 3 really proved that you could do it.
You're right. That was the first one that really proved it. And it proved it to Blizzard, really.
Yeah, and Diablo 3 on console plays better.
I honestly, I don't think I'll ever play Diablo on a PC again.
I mean, I did play Diablo 4 on a PC, but I used a controller.
Yeah, I played it on the couch, and I felt no worse for the wear for doing that.
The Diablo-like controller problem has been solved.
It has, for sure. And this will be the next in line to take advantage of those updates and changes that people have figured out over time.
The first one's good. I kickstarted the first one.
Did you?
Yeah, I have a box copy somewhere with a bunch of fucking art and extra things that I don't care about somewhere in the garage somewhere.
Well, no kickstarting for this one.
No, they don't need it.
No,
nope. They're established now.
I think this looks great. I mean, I wouldn't want to play it now because I'm still kind of burnt on this style of game from Diablo.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these games I need to play in my lifetime. Really,
but next year, I'll be ready for another one. And hopefully that's when this one will come out. I don't think they did announce a release date for it, though, unfortunately. But it's looking damn good. And again, if you enjoyed Diablo 4, this is one you might want to follow on Sifted. Just go to its game page and click the gear. And then next up, Matt, maybe in the clearest sign yet of just how poor this Gamescom was, the game of the show was, drumroll please, Little Nightmares 3 was the game of the show for Gamescom 2023. And this was the official game of the show chosen by Gamescom itself. And I'm not sure what goes into that.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are the criteria?
But I'm sure at some point, some human had to vote for this game, and several did, as the best game of the show. Now, it does have a new developer. It's being developed by Supermassive now. Does that really move the needle for you that much, though?
No.
Me either. Just like, again...
I mean, Little Nightmares is fine.
Yeah, they're fine. Game of the show at the biggest game convention of the year? I mean...
I'd have to see what the criteria are for it.
Yeah,
like
and then maybe they have very specific criteria. Does it have to be something
does it have to be a new reveal?
I don't know.
That limits it to about 10 things.
Because, I mean, really? You chose this over Mortal Kombat 1? Or...
Well, that's not a new reveal.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There must be a stipulation that it needs to be a new reveal.
I also can't really see a European game conference picking Mortal Kombat for anything. That's a very Ameritrash.
Well, I'm just saying, for example, there was Assassin's Creed. There's like 5 or 6 gigantic games there, like that were had bigger showings than this trailer that's 45 seconds long.
Did they get to play it? Does it have to be playable?
I don't think this was playable. Yeah,
like even for like a judges thing.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Yeah. You're not shocked, though, that this was Game of the show.
I do not care what wins game of any show. Really,
right.
so.
I'm not saying whether you care or not. I'm just asking whether you were surprised.
I don't know. Like, what else did they have, I guess? Unless you want to go to something that's been known about for a year. Like, that's kind of a problem with this year in general, is like there's not a lot to be announced. It's just a bunch of stuff that's finally coming out.
It was a problem for this show in particular. Like, they're just really...
What other show is there
any
been
big
this year?
reveals? Yeah. Well, I mean, there was still Summer Game Fest or whatever, so...
Yeah, but that's just the usual...
And there's going to be,
this is Keeley's usual, here's a bunch of indie games you've never heard of and will never hear of again, and Mortal Kombat.
There will be the Game Awards later on that'll announce a bunch of stuff.
Well... world premiere.
Exactly.
But how many of those things are going to be,
Yeah.
A lot of those world premiere are going to be Little Nightmares 3 level stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of where we are right now.
And that's it for the highlights for Gamescom 2023. The only left, like the hanging chad that's left is like Microsoft said that they're going to blow out Forza Motorsport, and it didn't. Like, there was really no coverage of Forza Motorsport from this show at all. The game's coming out like in the very near future. This is your last chance to, especially in Europe. Driving culture in Europe, way bigger than it is in the United States. It just is. Like, this was a perfect opportunity to reach a bunch of gearheads, and they blew it. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. They had said going into the show, Stalker 2 and Forza were going to be their big focus at Gamescom. And the Stalker part happened. This never really did. They did like an interview on Xbox's live stream. They did like a daily show from the show floor every day, and they did like an interview with the developers, and that was pretty much it. There's no new trailer.
To be fair, what else can you really say?
Well, they didn't release a new trailer for it. Like, maybe there's modes that they haven't talked about. Like, you plan that all out with your media plan. You don't just...
I mean, I imagine they're focused on Starfield right now, and that's
Yeah,
gonna be the
I
end
guess
of it.
so.
When is this? Is this October?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or wait, maybe November, actually.
Is it? I can't remember.
I think it's November.
Maybe I'm thinking of The Crew.
The Crew comes out in like
next
a week.
month? That's this...
In a couple weeks, yeah.
That's September? All right.
Yeah. Yep. Ubisoft's take on Forza Horizon. So we got really hardly anything on this game, which is a little weird. It's coming out soon. It was a good market for it, but we didn't. So overall, what kind of a letter grade are you willing to impart upon Gamescom for this show?
Well, I don't even know if it deserves a letter grade, really. It just sort of happened.
Yeah, I mean, I would give it the same as I gave Keeley's show, a C-. Mm-hmm. It's below average, but not terrible. So I guess I give it a C-. But not a great Gamescom. And we were talking earlier about, hey, maybe
I didn't even hear anything
June.
about it after last week's show. Like, just no one even talked about it.
Well, I was busting my ass curating content for it, but it was
I'm sure it was coming through there,
garbage.
yeah. But like in terms of just like chatter on Twitter and all that, and like your general like kind of online discussion,
no buzz.
Gamescom didn't come up.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I had to work my ass off because there was just like 200 indie games announced that nobody cares about. I know no one cares about them again because I can see the traffic on the site and no one watched any of those trailers hardly at all. So, yeah, it's I hope this isn't the future of trade shows for our industry. Again, the timing is tough for Gamescom. Maybe if they do move it to June, it'll fare a little better. But if this is what we get in replace of E3, I think we're in trouble. So there you go. That's Gamescom 2023. Hopefully 2024 will bring us a better show. And that brings us to the last topic for GameFace 356. We're going to talk about a game that I think both Matt and I were very excited for when we heard about it.
Well,
kind of excited for when we heard about it. Now that we've played it, I don't know if either one of us are excited now. And that game is called Rush Cyberfunk. It is the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio.
Which is being very kind.
Yeah, but it's really not. It is,
near as I can tell, it is made by people who did not understand why Jet Set Radio was any good at all.
Yeah. It is a cel-shaded extreme sports game. So if that's what you think Jet Set Radio is, then ding ding, you have a winner. Mm-hmm. But Matt and I feel like we have a connection to the soul of that original game, and that is what's bereft.
This is not a sweet soul brother to Jet Set Radio at all.
No. I think people watching this B-roll might even think that it's better than we think it is.
I guess. It's not like the gameplay is that off of what Future did to some degree. Mm-hmm. The problem with this game is it does not understand the appeal of Jet Set Radio for 1 second.
Yeah.
It is not about cell shading. It is not about just the skateboarding, the rollerblading or whatever. It is not just about the graffiti. There is a tone and style to Jet Set Radio that is absolutely missing in this game. This is one of the most soulless things I've ever played.
They try really hard.
They do try really hard, but it's just there's too much cyber and not enough funk.
That's a good way to put it.
It is a weird cyberpunk-ish body horror story. There's a lot of body horror in this game. Like people getting beheaded and like
I was
sewn back
surprised.
together. And
I only played the first hour, but I saw some of that stuff.
I played a few. I went through the first few gangs. You know, it's like it is structured like Jet Set Radio, where you have to like take over territory from various weird gangs. But like in the first one is a bunch of guys who are sewn together from different body parts. Like they're called the Franks because they're Frankensteins. Like, and look, I will give them credit where the guy who leads that gang is called the Flesh Prince, which is pretty funny. But they're sewn together out of.
Also, I mean, that is funny, but it's also
completely off for what Jet Set Radio should be doing.
I mean, is it a little bit offensive too?
Well, yeah, the whole thing, because they're all sewn together from different colored body parts of different races of people, and like there's one guy who's
think about Japanese people. How do they say the word fresh?
Oh yeah, but like I mean, sort of, but it's still a pun in English that works.
Yeah. The double
and the guy, the guy who it is a white kid, so it's not like they're going for some Asian reference. The more offensive thing is that all the guys are sewn together out of different races of body parts, and one guy actually says that his jump shot's great now that he has the leg of a Puerto Rican high jumper, and I'm like, you are in some very weird territory here, boys. I don't know about this one. And then the second group is like a bunch of it's all women. It's an all women group, and they're like. Are they angels or like they're like I can't remember, but you know what? 25 years later, I can tell you that the all-female gang in Jet Set Radio is called the Love Shockers, which should tell you everything you need to know about how memorable this crap is.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for me at all. There is a tone in Jet Set Radio that has there's a tone of like joy and soul and funk and. It's wacky, but it's wacky, but it's not mean. There's a fun element to it that's just not here at all.
I agree.
Like
it's kind of a mean-spirited game.
This is a horror game to some degree, and I don't like what they've done with it.
When I say they try really hard to make it like notice like the idle animations, they're swaying side to side like they're dancing, and like you can see they just tried to replicate everything about the game, but again, you can't replicate the soul of a piece
and they
of
don't
art.
Well, they also don't understand the soul.
They don't understand what made it appealing.
It's like all the imagery is there, but you're not putting it together. It's like watching Zack Snyder's Watchmen. It's like, oh, you used the comic as the template and the storyboard for this, but you didn't understand what this story was
Why
about.
it was a big deal. Yeah.
You didn't understand that Rorschach is not the hero of this story. It's like that kind of thing here. It's like the pieces are sort of there, but it doesn't. It's made by someone who did not take the same thing away from Jet Set Radio I ever did. That's for sure. And I don't like the music very much. I think the music leans too far into like hip hop and doesn't remember the funk enough. It doesn't have enough of the experimental elements.
I'd agree. The music's pretty generic compared to the original game. Yeah.
And you can see there like he's doing that kind of dance that the characters do in the eye. But it's also he even looks bored doing it.
He does.
Yeah. And you get this slide, which is an interesting thing. Like the slide is actually a pretty good mechanic. Like I think if you made a third Jet Set Radio, maybe you would put that in there. But you know what? Even Jet Set Radio Future didn't really nail the soul of Jet Set Radio 1.
No, you're right.
In the and I argue that Jet Set Radio was not just of a time. It was something that could only have happened then in that particular cultural time from that particular team and the music from Wavemaster at Sega at the time. Like that was a certain combination of people and style and fashion and ideas that happened at that moment, and you can never really get that again.
My real big issue
and to try to replicate it is probably to indicate you've already failed.
Well, my big issue is that like there are things that they could have improved upon from Jet Set Radio, like the gameplay.
Right.
Like it's honestly, you go back and play that now, it feels very archaic.
In a post Tony Hawk world with all that to look back on and draw from, it's very weird. The only thing they seem to have picked up is the manual.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, this game plays just like Jet Set Radio. It's way too easy. Like there's no real balance. Like you just lock onto stuff and you just stay on it, and you just mash the buttons and do a million tricks. Like there's no skill to the game at all. And again, that is like Jet Set Radio. It was very automatic as far as doing your grinds and your tricks are concerned, but that game is ancient. To your point, how many Tony Hawk games have we played? How many developers have worked on extreme sports games that have refined this formula over time? And instead, this is too concerned about staying true to some old game that, in the worst part of that old game, I would add.
Especially because it's replicating that aspect of Jet Set Radio down to the parts of Jet Set Radio that were annoying.
Right.
You know, like there were things that, and there are times, especially when it comes to the grinding and transfers and like comboing stuff, and especially comboing to wall riding and stuff, that does feel very much like Jet Set Radio. But that is not the part of Jet Set Radio that I fondly remember.
No, that's the worst part of it.
Yeah.
It's like you're replicating accurately.
Like this transfer here, you're like, am I going to make it? I don't know.
Of course you are.
It's just so, but it's so
automatic.
floaty that you don't always know when you're out in the main world.
But after you play this for like 40 minutes, you know you're going to make it to that rail. You know the magnets are going to suck your ass right to that rail.
Unless the camera takes you to a different area from where you jumped and you don't quite know where you're going to end up, which happens when you're trying to grind against walls a lot.
Yeah.
Or if you can't get that high for some reason this time. There's a few things there where you're like,
no, you're right.
I feel like I should be able to make that, but I can't for some reason because they want you to wait until you can raise this other thing up and then jump from that to that. And you're like, every other situation I've been able to jump that high, but this time I can't. The other thing I would say is the world is really beige and boring other than the graffiti. Like, it's a surprisingly uncolorful world.
Well, it also completely misses something about graffiti. The graffiti pieces in this are pretty good. It needs more of them. I got real tired of throwing up the same tag over and over again. But the thing about being a graffiti artist is you have your own style. When I see, like, there's this guy named Credit from Philly, like the city's biggest writer, I could see one of his pieces, I knew immediately it was a Credit piece because it was just his art style, the way he did his letters, the way he did his shading, the way he did his highlights. In this, what they did was they hired a bunch of different graffiti artists, and your same dude is throwing up all their pieces. So it's just completely unrealistic. Like, all his pieces should look not exactly the same, but you should be able to tell they're from the same artist. That's not the case in this.
Especially since you do play a character that everybody seems to know as the best graffiti artist in the city.
Right, yeah. They've missed a lot of the
who,
cultural
to be fair,
touch points.
Gets his head cut off and replaced with a robot head, which is... Okay, so weird, sure. The other thing I don't... So the one thing I kept thinking about that as you go through the story and you still have the robot head... Why does the robot head have a giant projecting fin on the back of it that clips through every single thing the character goes anywhere near in the cutscenes?
Well, even if he folds his hands clip into his body.
But like, why give him a thing that is going to obviously clip through everything he goes near, every chair he sits in,
setting yourself up for failure.
It's just like you chose to look terrible in that. It was very strange. The combat is very loose and floaty
and weird.
You're always trying to hit something out of the air, and like it doesn't always know. You don't always know when you're going to make contact. You do tend to make contact more often than you don't, but like you don't always know why you hit something.
Camera has problems keeping track of the combat sometimes. Like, the gameplay in this to me is bad, and I'm obviously a gameplay first guy. I say that all the time.
Like, I've seen tweets where people call this one of the best playing games of the decade. Like, there are people who are like basically like, I've seen people like, this is the best game of the year in terms of gameplay, and in terms of grinding and the trick thing, and like how amazing the trick system is.
Well, maybe
and I'm like,
that person had played Tony Hawk games and sucked at them and was like, wow, I can actually play this.
But there's nothing here. There's no depth to the and like you didn't need depth to the trick system and stuff in Jet Set Radio because you were there for different reasons. And you know what? Even in Jet Set Radio, there were graffiti sets. Like, you could customize whatever your character painted, but there were sets of graffiti, and you want to mix and match, similar. You could. But if you wanted all the graffiti to have the same style, you could. That's not here. And you unlock graffiti all the time in this, but it all goes into your sort of bank, and you have to know which direction to start the spray in to paint different things. And I would forget which one's which all the time. But yeah, there's no coherency between them really, outside of everything having something to do with the name of your the bomb rush crew. Or whatever your crew name is, which for some reason was only 2 people until you showed up.
I should love this game, is what I'm getting at, and I do not. So take that for what is. This is like Shane the video game. Let's be honest. Like,
well, the exception of decapitations via vinyl record.
But I skated for over a decade. I wrote graffiti. I'm a DJ.
You can even choose to have a normal skateboard in this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is like Shane the video game, and I still.
And why can you take the skates and skateboard off? What is the like? You can just run around on your own, really slow and boring.
Well,
like,
one thing I will say I do like about
you end up
this,
on steps, you end up like running around on foot, and you have to press the button to bring your skates back out. And I'm like, why is this?
I kind of think that's kind of cool, though. The way that you can transition from skating to not skating and running. Like, that was one of the things about the gameplay that I thought was kind of clever. Because with Tony Hawk, it's like you have to click something. Like, here, it's context sensitive. It kind of does it, like, automatically depending on the terrain. And then maybe that's something that other extreme sports games could learn. But that's, that's the faintest praise that I can give this game at this point. So I felt a lot of times like the game just played itself. And the other parts of it, the cinematics and the story and the characters, weren't enough to keep me playing. And so the gameplay wasn't good enough to keep me playing. And then the story and everything else wasn't either. And I just lost interest. And it doesn't hurt either that I'm playing this other game that is a little bit more of a bigger priority. So, I had some built-in incentive to not play this all that long. So, I say take a pass on this, honestly. I was disappointed in it.
I wish I'd never played it.
Yeah.
I think it's an egregious,
like a travesty.
I think it's an egregious insult to the memory of Jet Set Radio. I think this is maybe the most wrong. It's like I'm trying to think of a comparison of like someone who has misunderstood some. I mean, I'm sure the people who made this love Jet Set Radio, but I would argue that they didn't understand Jet Set Radio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if this is what you decided to make as a spiritual successor, I don't know what you took out of that game. Like the rudimentary gameplay, and for some reason you thought it should be gorier and weird, like scarier. Like like the body horror in this is bizarre. Like there's none of that in.
I mean, they could have stayed true to the tone, and it would have been fine because we haven't got a game like this in forever. Like they didn't have to change that part of the game. So I'm disappointed. Matt's kind of devastated over this game. I think I enjoyed it.
I mean, I never had a lot of hope for it because, again, I think Jet Set Radio is of its time. And like I said, I don't even think Jet Set Radio Future fully captures what made Jet Set Radio what it is.
Yeah.
But this is just, I cannot more vehemently disagree with the people who made this over the idea of what this is versus what Jet Set Radio was.
Yeah.
Like, it is absolutely the wrong way to. I can't come up with a version. I mean, I guess maybe the comparison, I haven't seen it yet, but I have a feeling that Rebel Moon is going to be this to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like you're going to accidentally end up having to make people root for the Nazi Empire or something. Like it's like, wow, you really did not understand what you fucking watched there, did you? So I don't know. Like I don't have a real comparison here to like a work that's supposed to be succeeding something else that just completely failed to capture any of it outside of the aesthetics. But
yeah, well, you saw the B-roll. What you see is what you get with this game. It doesn't feel particularly great. There's not a lot of depth to the gameplay, but if you're interested in the subject matter, the graffiti stuff, the flash, maybe you should pick it up. I would wait till you can find it for like $15 or whatever. It is available for everything. It's even Switch. So if you're interested in it, you can pick it up on whatever platform it is that you spend all your time on. So there you go. That's Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. That's 2 thumbs down for both of us.
Another title, I can't remember the name of this game to save my life. Like for whatever the reason, this game doesn't stick in my head. The title.
Which game?
Bomb Rush.
Oh, I know. It's hard to remember.
I can't remember it ever. I'm like what? Yeah. Is it? It just doesn't stick in my head.
We also have Cyberpunk 2077. I've been working with both of these games in the last few days. I've mixed them up like 3 times.
But also just like same with like Immortals of Aveum. Like that's not a memorable title either. It's like I don't know what it Bomb Jet Set Radio is like. Oh, that's good to say. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Like what does that mean?
Nothing.
What is a bomb rush?
It means nothing. Well, bombing is graffiti.
Right.
So, but bombing is when you do the big pieces, like do a whole train. The rush part. No.
Is that like how you use rush in a kind of like the weird Japanese translations from back there to mean like do it quickly kind of thing?
Maybe that's what it is.
Like,
yeah.
Because that's their name is the Bomb Rush crew.
Yeah. So maybe they're like, we got to throw up our pieces fast or we could get caught. Like, truth of the matter is, if you're a graffiti writer, you got to throw your shit up fast.
Yeah,
you are rushing. And that's part of the art of it, is how good can you do with the pressure on, knowing you have limited time, people driving by who could call the cops, all that type of stuff. It all plays into graffiti.
I don't know. Like they're big Rush Limbaugh fans. That's what this is. This is Jet Set Radio if it was made by people who are fans of conservative talk radio. That's my. There's no punk here. There's no funk to it.
It's just people's heads getting taken off.
Yeah, it's just like weird violence fantasies. I don't get it. Like, there's nothing in this game on the level of like the fucking DJ.
Oh, I know.
Who like kind of DJs the whole game in Jet Set Radio. It's like there's no sense of fun or joy to it. It's just it's such a slog. They missed
the tone of the original.
Unbelievable. Like a misfire on a level just hard to fathom.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. All right. And that can only mean one thing. It's now time for That's right. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of that damn game. And you need to do it before this guy comes up with the name. A couple things before we get going. If you've won already this year, do not play. Also, we put the chat on slow mode, which means you can only input one thing every 60 seconds. So when we start, don't just start spamming game titles, because you could figure out what the game is, and you're going to type it in, and you're over your 60-second limit, so don't do it. Also, if you don't play PC games, and you don't know anybody who plays PC games, do not play. The winner of this game gets a free code, but it is for PC, and we don't want to give away a code to somebody who's not going to use it. So, if you're not going to use a code for a PC game, please do not play. Let somebody else play and win who will use the code. And that's pretty much it. It's a simple thing. Are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
Okay.
See if we can see the tire this time.
That's right. Here is the first image for Name That Game. Let's go. And as always, it's just a texture. Either you know the texture from the game or you don't.
Well, it's not Jet Set Radio.
It's not. It's definitely not. Okay, here come the guesses. Wolfenstein: The New Order. No. That's a good guess, though. I could see where you would come up with that. The Division. No. Two Wolfenstein New Orders. Wow. Nope, it's not.
Must have an id Tech flavor to it.
Yep. Quantum Break. No. That's another good guess, though. Yeah. I shouldn't expect anything less from you guys. You guys are on it usually. Okay, not many guesses from that first one. Mass Effect Andromeda, no, but that's another good guess. Yep. Brute Force, Evil Oni 5, busting out the Xbox launch game. No, it's not Brute Force. Brute Force never, the textures in Brute Force never looked that good.
Oh, no.
Detroit, no, that's another good guess, though. Red Faction, no. These are all good guesses from you guys. No. RE Village, no. All good ones. Eric Carmenez, who's going to owe me $50 after the Steelers win 9 games. I haven't forgot about our bet, bro. Space Ace, nope. Wow, that's a great guess, Justin Horman. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, no. These are all really great guesses, though. I could see where any of these. Lost Planet, no, but also a good guess. That's the second Detroit. Nope, not Detroit. All right, is that it for the guesses on the first image? Looks like it. All right, here we go. Here's the second image for Name That Game. Big hint there. Big hint there.
That kind of looks like Fallout 3.
Not Fallout 3. Not Homefront. Nightmare 452. Resistance 3, no. Hybrid Heaven, there it is. Nope. Fallout 3, no. Sniper Elite, no. Fallout 4, no. 2 Fallout 4s. A bunch of Fallout. Fallout New Vegas, no. Spec Ops The Line, no. Gears of War 3, no. Fallout, no. I hope this isn't Destiny or something. No! It's a Gears game from Consoleized. Cartman says, I have too much faith in Pickett. Nope, I have faith in the offensive line and the running game. Red Faction, no. It has that Fallout color tone. It does. I can see why people are guessing it. Call of Duty 4, no. All right, looks like we're going to make it to the third image.
Rage.
Not Rage. Nope. All right, on to the third image. And here it is. Come on, you guys got to get it from this. I'm giving you a lot right there. Sekiro, no. Battlefield, no. Gears 1, no. Justin Horman, oh man, I haven't played that one. Uncharted 2, no. Dying Light, no. Cyberpunk 2077, no. Killzone, no. Mad Max, no. Like a Dragon, no. Dying Light, no. Resident Evil 5, no. Call of Duty Black Ops, no. RE4, no. Simpsons Wrestling, no. Wow. I'm surprised you guys didn't get it from this one. All right. We'll move on to image 4. This is a good one. You guys are definitely going to get it from this one. So get your fingers ready for the typing. And here it is.
Oh, is that Wolfenstein New Colossus?
Nope. Good guess, though. Wow. We have a winner. There we go. I was like, come on. Somebody's got to get it. X-Lord Xerxes gets it with Killzone 2.
I want to talk about a series that's been erased from my memory banks. Killzone's a pretty good comparison to Immortals of Aveum.
Yeah?
That thing where it's like, this just isn't what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And there's no real reason why it just doesn't quite add up to what it needs to be, you know?
Yep. And here's the final image. This one definitely would have given it away. The Hellgas there. But there was a Hellgas helmet in this one.
Yeah, I see it down there.
And there's also the Hellgas banners. I couldn't believe nobody got it from that one. I can't believe it took so long for someone to get it from that one.
Somewhat. Those also just look like kind of the generic Nazi banners from Wolfenstein. I see why Wolfenstein was a guess early
exactly.
on.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, Lord Xerxes, great job. I'll give you another round of applause. Good job, man. You got it on the fourth one. As always, you can send me a DM here on Twitch. You can send me a DM on Twitter. I am at Dinfire. You can send Sifted a DM on Twitter at Sifted Games. You can send me a DM on Sifted at Shane. Any of those places, just hit me up and we'll get you your free game code. We're about to do some Q&A, but before we do that, we need to hear a word from our other awesome sponsor, Soundwizardry.com.
Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Soundwizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel.
As I say every week, head to soundwizardry.com for any of your sound needs. They can do pretty much anything. They can handle any of the sound work you may have for any project that you're working on. Again, as I say every week, they have helped us out with episodes of GameFace where the files got corrupted or the audio was borked or Matt and I were like going way over modulated. He has helped us so many times with various sound issues we've had working on stuff at Sifted. He is awesome. So again, head to soundwizardry.com and hook it up. Let's see. I think we have time for one question in Q&A. We're kind of already at our time limit here. Let's see.
Somebody did figure out the name of that game I couldn't think of.
With the V?
Vindictus.
Vindictus. Got it. Too Quick Capri says no Sea of Stars. No, I haven't had a chance to play enough of it yet.
I got my backer code for that at 11 o'clock last night, so no.
I'm playing Starfield, obviously, and that's a bigger priority. Although, don't get me wrong, like, we are both excited to play Sea of Stars. So it will be, in fact, I will probably play it while I'm home. I will take my Switch on the road for once, and I will play it on the road while I'm gone for vacation. When we come back, I'll be ready to talk about it. So anyway, no Sea of Stars today, but we will have it in the next episode of GameFace. Some people hit us up with Twitch Prime. I want to thank them. This is for Vidya Games. Thank you for Twitch Prime. Cody S. Carter, thank you for Twitch Prime.
He's the one who knew Vindictus. This is for Vidya Games.
So double thank you. Somebody has Game of Thrones back. Zet Saber says, I watched the stream to listen to Soundwizardry's background music. All right. Mike's Q, do you think there is any chance we get server code for PC games again? Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime. People are asking for a Luna emote, and people are asking for an emote of you. And I promise you that I will deliver both of those. Give me a little bit of time, but I will make sure that I get emotes for both Matt and for Luna soon. Looking forward to see what you think of the music, Shane. I'm not sure what you're talking about, actually. But Console Eye says, great sounding ad. That's good. Like, I hope that's the case. I was very careful about doing the audio in that ad because obviously he's like the sound master. And so I knew if I didn't nail it, he'd be like, nope, that's not good enough. So that's good to hear that you thought the audio was good in the ad. Yakov226. Now that Gamescom ended, what do you think TGS? Do you think TGS will be a better show?
No.
The fact that Gamescom was that bad just makes me think that TGS is going to be really bad. A lot of Western publishers go to TGS anymore. They just don't. Like, they just have kind of written it off at this point. So, yeah, I do not have high hopes for TGS, but I haven't had high hopes for TGS since like 2010. Let's just be honest. Like, that's really the last year the show was like worth really covering. TGS has been on a bad run, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, unfortunately. So, I don't think TGS is going to be some great revelation, unfortunately. But anyway, we have to wrap things up here, unfortunately. Oh, look, they already have a black cat emoji that people are using in the chat. Vincent says TGS will have Monster Hunter World 2, and that's about it. Yeah. I mean, they'll have one or two
Hold me back.
Yeah. They'll have one or two big Japanese games, and that'll pretty much be it. So, all right, that's it for GameFace 356. Again, don't forget, there is no show next week. Do not be here at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday. We will not be here. And we won't be back until the following Tuesday, likely. But again, make sure you follow Sifted on Twitter, @SiftedGames, for all the latest updates on that. If you're listening to this show on the podcast services or you're watching it for free on YouTube, it would really be awesome if you could help us out some way financially. You can either do it with Twitch Prime, where if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can give us a free $2.50 every month, but you have to go back and do it every month. And the instructions for doing that are down below. Again, YouTube fam, please help us out with that. And if you just want to help us out, period, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. You can pledge whatever you want there, $1 a month, and even that gets you some on-site rewards. Every tier gets you different on-site rewards in addition to having access to different things and different rewards on our Patreon. We appreciate every single dollar in our Patreon. We really, really do. So, and we will remember you too. We remember almost all our patrons, which is pretty awesome. It would be awesome to get to a point someday where I don't remember most of them, because that would just mean that we're flourishing. But there is something to be said for the community that we have going here and how we kind of all know each other. It's kind of cool. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you're wasting your time on Twitter or on YouTube trying to follow the games industry, come to Sifted. If you're an older adult, you're tired of dealing with toxic people all over the internet, come to Sifted. That's why we built the site, is for older players who still love games but just don't want to deal with all the riffraff in the games industry and don't have the time to hunt around for stuff they actually care about on YouTube or on Twitter or wherever.
And that's about to get way worse than normal this week.
Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah.
The console wars
is going to get ugly.
Going to heat up in a way they haven't been in years.
It's really kind of crazy when you think about it. So anyway, this was a great show. I thought it was. We had some good stuff in here, but the next show is going to be all about Starfield. So get ready. But again, if you're a patron, look out for our content at Embargo Break on the 31st for Starfield. We're going to have a bunch of it for you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. So, I guess it'll be a couple weeks till we see Matt again on GameFace, and a couple weeks for me too. Although maybe you'll see me in the Starfield coverage. Who knows? You have to wait and see. So
I'm very disappointed at how few Garfield jokes are being made about Starfield so far. This feels like that should be there.
Well, Dave, that was putting the ball in the tee for David Jaffe. Instead,
Right.
he went for the Seinfeld joke.
Starfield. Again.
Starfield loves lasagna.
Here comes Starfield, which is the first Garfield special.
That's right.
Starfield sits around the house.
All right,
come on,
yeah.
how is it? I mean, the first day, there better Thursday by 6 p.m. Pacific, there better be a Garfield mod to
Matt?
put him onto the ship.
I think I just got an idea for the lower third for our Starfield discussion. All right, people. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you in 2 weeks here on GameFace. Until then, GameFace is up and out.